People enjoying terrible accidents. Vegetarians making fun of people who have been killed by animals. People enjoying terrible accidents. Vegetarians making fun of people who have been killed by animals. People enjoying terrible accidents.
For those of you who have actually seen it, who's your favorite? Who is the Tiger King?
Who's my favorite in that show?
I like Bhagavan a lot.
Yeah,
I don't like him, but you know.
That guy's in that.
Is he the guy? Oh,
Fuck yeah, dude.
Perfect.
Did you write that with your girlfriend's lipstick?
No, but she did write it on me.
I like the hair over the nipples, man.
Gotta keep it
She's
classy.
the artist. What was that?
So I like the hair over the nipples.
Yeah, thank you. It's a patent look.
Come closer to the camera, Matt. There you go. Yeah.
No, a little closer.
What's your address? I'll be there soon.
You're just delivering sex.
Come on, relax.
Matt, Mike, Matt. You guys haven't met before.
What's up, dude?
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. There we go. Shall we get started, everybody?
Yeah, let's pop it off.
Let's do it.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Why did I do this to myself? Hell yeah. Can we take screenshots?
I think it's all recorded on video. Hey,
Yeah,
Cal.
true. Yeah. Okay, I just lost you guys because I tried to do a screenshot. All right, this is a very special episode of People Enjoying Terrible Accidents. I'm Andie Main. Today we have Carlos Madrid, the producer, remotely. Say hello, Carlos.
Hello, Carlos.
Okay, Carlos is connecting to audio. We are working out the bugs here. We got Mike Brunken today. Say hello, Mike. Okay,
Hello, Mike.
great. We got Michael Isaacs. Hello, Michael.
Hey.
We got Matt Cobos. What's up, Matt?
Free Joe.
Hell yeah. We're doing Joe Exotic because everyone's talking about it, and I got to capitalize on that, even though there's not technically anyone murdered by animals in this, unless you count man. So I don't know. It's not.
That one girl
Huh?
lost her goddamn arm.
Yeah, that lesbian lost an arm, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Too bad that bitch Carol didn't die, but.
Are you gonna say that, Matt?
And by the way, the rule on this episode that every time you get to a point where you have to talk about Carol, you have to refer to her as that bitch Carol.
Well, as a feminist, I can't do that, but that's. Are you drinking White Claw? Hell yeah.
Yeah. Damn right.
Yeah, you can do that for sure, but I'm not gonna, because my sister's name is Carol, and that would upset me.
Sorry.
That's fair.
Yeah. Let's talk about, there's a couple things I wanted to ask you guys before we got started in the story. Do you think Carol killed her husband?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do too.
I've just been introduced to
think-
that twist they give you at the end of episode 2, so
Oh,
I'm on
okay.
board for it.
Jury's out for me. I'm still in. I think I'm about to start episode 4. A little
Okay.
bit.
It's
Yeah.
like when she
I'm
talks
still
about her.
firmly Team Joe, though.
Yeah.
I just love how the documentarians, like, they just casually mention it, like it's like public knowledge, and the documentarians just like, wait, what? And just all of a sudden the story just changes.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think she did, because like if you look at her when she's talking about the death of her husband, she's not even sad. She's talking about it like,
yeah.
Oh no! And in the power of attorney, it's like, yes, upon my disappearance, give all of my money to my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was the main factor, was that whole disappearance thing. I was like, what the fuck? I've never seen that in somebody's will. What the fuck?
Yeah. That bitch, Carol. Okay, Matt, you need to
Yeah,
do it.
dude.
All right. I'm gonna hold my hands like this while I'm reading, so you guys can't tell that I'm fat. I found this really cool article from the Texas Weekly, like the Texas Alt Weekly, and it has a lot of interesting shit in it that they didn't cover in the documentary. So I will just get started and interrupt me whenever you want. Joe Exotic was done. For the previous 2 decades, 55-year-old Joe had been the heart, soul, and ubiquitous public face of a massive private zoo in Wynwood, Oklahoma, an hour north of the Texas line. He had boasted of owning the largest tiger collection in America. His 16-acre park was lined with metal cages, each filled with majestic lions, tigers, bears, and alligators, and even tiger-lion hybrids called tiligers. I didn't know they were called tiligers. I thought they were ligers.
I thought they were ligers.
I think there's 2 different types. It depends on who's the mom and who's the dad.
Oh,
Mhm.
look at you, Isaac's the biologist.
Gee, look
Yep.
at this shit.
I know my animal mixture hybrids. Got my centaur tattoo right here. That's my area of expertise. So just keep going.
I don't know, man. I'm
I
going
do
with
have a
Napoleon
centaur
Dynamite.
His sun-leathered visage, horseshoe mustache, and blonde mullet adorned signs all over the zoo and all along I-35 between Dallas and Oklahoma City. His image covered the side of a tour bus, as well as packages of condoms for sale at the zoo's eclectic gift shop. His face had been on CNN, BBC, CBS This Morning, and he had drawn millions of views on his YouTube channels and website, which hosted his shows Joe Exotic and Joe Gone Wild.
They were selling condoms in the gift shop. They're like, if you're into tigers, you're definitely fucking.
I like the idea of a little kid being like, "Mommy, buy me this."
It's like one of those couldn't contain you.
Maybe there was like an adult section of the gift shop, but it didn't look like it. Like he was selling lube too, right?
Jeez.
Yeah. And underwear.
Oh God.
The underwear were banging.
Yeah. They were. Well, didn't you see the part where he was doing the political, like he was out like giving out like his bumper stickers and stuff.
Yeah.
And he was giving out his condoms, and he gave some like younger kid one, and then he gave like this little girl a condom, and her mom was like, "What's that?" And she's like looking at it.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, "Oh fuck! I would have socked that dude in the fucking head if he would have gave my daughter that."
Oh my God.
What's weirder is that the mom has never worn a condom. Never seen one.
Yeah, right.
Joe needs to know his audience, dude. Most of Joe's life, many of his best moments and many of his worst, could be traced back to that zoo. He had for years both worked and lived on the property, but by August 2018, his kingdom had all but turned to dust. The zoo's new owner, a flashy exotic animal breeder named Jeff Lowe, had squeezed Joe out of the business 2 months earlier and was in the process of dismantling much of the zoo piece by piece before taking the animals to another facility.
Yeah, because
Joe had
that dude is definitely a meth dealer.
Oh yeah.
And what do meth dealers do besides break shit apart to sell for parts?
Yeah.
Probably on
Well
Carol
done.
fucking payroll too.
Namely, their teeth.
Yeah.
Brunken, what'd you say?
I haven't got there yet. I'm just making things up about Carol Baskins, putting him up.
That
That
bitch.
bitch Carol.
Dude, clearly Jeff's on her payroll.
Yeah.
Whoever the
Oh,
fuck-
you know what? That's interesting. We'll get to that. Joe had issues with Lowe, but he blamed his troubles mainly on someone else. Carol Baskin, the owner of a big cat sanctuary in Tampa, Florida. Let me say this about Carol. her sanctuary wasn't any better than Joe's.
Yeah,
Not at all.
No, not at all.
Worse.
Yeah,
She had all that slave labor and dead husband money.
yeah.
I don't think I ever saw her actually playing with a tiger who was enjoying it. I will say that Joe Exotic was having a good time with his tigers.
They couldn't
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. He was partying with his tigers. They were doing
Yeah.
meth together. Yeah.
Yeah, at least Joe could get his tigers hard.
Mhm.
To those
Uh,
outside the exotic.
what am I in for? Jesus.
I just had a thought, like, you know, in China, how they like eat tiger dicks to get hard.
Wait,
of
what?
course.
Yeah.
In China.
You can eat all
In
kinds
China.
of
Oh,
fucked
in
up shit
Denver,
in China
too.
trying to get Corona
What is
came
it?
from, man.
What does a tiger eat to get hard? You know, like he's already got it. Does he eat another tiger dick?
Probably
Tigers are.
Shit to get hard.
Probably whatever Viagra Joe sells in the gift shop.
Hell yeah.
All
Um,
tiger pleasure.
To those outside the exotic animal industry, Baskin and Joe appeared to operate similar facilities, but their philosophies diverged sharply on nearly every animal rights issue, notably the ethics of breeding big cats and allowing visitors to pet cubs, both of which had been fundamental parts of Joe's business. Today, there are more animals in captivity than the wild, and breeding remains a major point of contention between conservationists and private zoo owners like Joe. Baskin was Joe's most vocal and effective critic, and in 2013, she'd won a $1 million civil suit against him. He became consumed with revenge and repeatedly vowed to bring Baskin down. But he had failed to do so after years of trying and lost everything in the process. Now, all he wanted was to shed his identity and leave behind the swollen persona that had become most recognizable and controversial the exotic animal industry had ever seen. So, along with his then 22-year-old husband and 4 dogs, he split for Florida. Did they cover this in the documentary and I missed it? Like, he left before he got arrested.
Yeah.
They covered it. It's on the last one.
Wait,
Okay.
what happened to his other 2 husbands?
Well, boy,
Well, no, they
guys,
kept talking about how
episode 5
big his
is gonna
hands
teach
were.
you some shit.
Yeah, the big
Yeah.
hand boy. Hey, he had big feet too.
Yeah.
Dude, Mike, in episode 5, one of the husbands, his hobby is pointing guns at people. Like, he just goes around and is like, I'm gonna fucking shoot you. And he was talking to Joe's libertarian campaign manager, and he like put a gun to his head, and he said he wasn't loaded, but he fucking shot himself in the head in front of this guy.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's
shit.
even
What
video
was
of
that?
it, but not of him. Yeah. There's video of
it's
the
on
guy
tape,
watching
too.
him do it, and it's
Yeah.
fucking horrible.
Libertarian. Since he was libertarian, he was like, "That's your right. You can do that."
I'm sick of the government telling me I can't fucking shoot my guns.
So that's how one of his husbands left.
Wow,
Um,
god damn, that's fucking exciting. Now I got something to look forward to today.
Glad to raise your
Fucking-
spirits.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this was the highlight of my day. This is all I was looking forward to, but you just got usurped.
I usurped it by spoiling it. That's okay. It was worth it for your expression, in my opinion. Joe,
I do like watching rednecks kill themselves. So. Sorry.
that's like a very specific type of porn.
Like, gotta have really big hands. Kind of dumb but cute. You know what I like.
They ended up at a Motel 6 in Pensacola and soon discovered a bedroom community named Gulf Breeze. I don't know what a bedroom community is.
It's a neighborhood that doesn't have any industry, and they all commute to another town that's like 30.
Oh, okay. Wow, we learned something. The sand was white, the water clear. He found work washing dishes at Peg Leg Pete's, a pirate-themed seafood joint, and bartending for a catering company at night. He had found his new home. On the morning of September 7th, 2018, 81 days after Joe had left the zoo, he went to a local hospital to apply for a third job. It was a sunny Florida day. There was dew on the grass. The temperature was just right. Joe parked near the hospital and stepped down from his blue Ford F-150 with his resume in his hand. Can you imagine what Joe looks like when he's applying for a job, by the way?
He's almost certainly applying for the job of doctor.
Have extensive medical training.
Whatever, dude. I'll figure it out. I cut this mullet myself, bro.
Suddenly, 4 unmarked cars skidded to a stop around him. In a flash, he was surrounded by plainclothes law enforcement officers.
Yeah,
Joe
compared to him.
Everyone's plainclothes. They shouted, "Get on the ground! Get on the ground!" He dropped and felt a knee drive into his back. He was cuffed and taken to the federal courthouse for an arraignment hearing. You guys are just laughing at me saying arrangement hearing. Okay.
That's how Joe read that word too.
Reading's hard, Matt. You don't even know how to do it.
I know. I had to have my girlfriend write this.
You did a really good job.
Thanks.
She did. She spelled Joe right.
Yeah, totally. I wouldn't have.
You would have put free Jew exotic.
Yeah, totally. And just gotten canceled right away.
You're wanting to free the Jews. It's okay.
Only the exotic ones.
Only the Ashkenazis. Mike, Brunken, you look offended.
No, I was just running that all through.
Oh, okay.
I need a minute.
You just looked like you were having an existential crisis, that's all. So he got arrested, and suddenly he was famous again. His mulleted mug all over the national news. The story of how it had come would strain even the darkest imagination. Before he was Joe Exotic, he was Joe Schreibvogel. I don't know how to say his last name. It was Schreibvogel, I
How do you
think.
spell it?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Schreibvogel. So he was born on a farm in rural Kansas. Though his parents had come from wealthy farming families, they did not pamper the children, and Joe always felt that he and his 4 siblings were born to work as farmhands. It was not an affectionate household. Joe's parents rarely, if ever, told him that they loved him.
Aww.
Oh,
Yay!
Joe.
That's not a surprise.
No, hey, to be
Joe.
fair, if Joe was your kid, how often did you see yourself telling him?
I bet they called him Joe Dirt
Yeah.
first.
I love him.
You love him?
No.
Everyone's mad at Cardi B because she supports him. She wrote like "Free Joe Exotic" on her chest and did a video about it.
I knew I was a rapper.
I bet actually that'd be awesome if he put out a rap video. He's a really talented singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
His songs were good.
I'd like
That
to-
wasn't him
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
singing though.
What?
Yeah, sorry.
He's just the mastermind behind that composition?
It was one of his big-handed hot husbands, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
His father, a Korean War vet, moved the family from Kansas when Joe was 14. First, they went to Wyoming, where the property they owned seemed to Joe like an entire mountainside. Then they moved to Pilot Point, Texas, north of Dallas, where they lived in an 8-bedroom house on a large ranch. Joe was not close with his siblings, except for his older brother, Gerald. Joe and Gerald shared a deep love of the animals. Joe participated in Future Farmers of America and often brought home raccoons, ferrets, and other creatures to care for.
Hell
He
yeah.
and what?
I said hell yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Keep going.
I feel like being a boy that wants a lion is like being a girl that wants a horse.
Joe Exotic. Horse girls for rednecks.
I won't be happy till I get a lion, Dad. Gee.
He and Gerald like to watch nature shows on TV, and Joe confided in Joe that he hoped one day to live free in the wild in Africa so he can see the beautiful beasts there. When Joe graduated from high school, he graduated, guys, and I didn't. Neither did you, Cobos.
No, I know.
Joe Exotic's got one on me too.
Michael, did you graduate from high school?
Yeah, I graduated from
Oh,
high
look
school
at you, you
and
scholar.
college.
Carlos, did you?
I did, yeah.
Mm.
I also have a college
I don't know why
degree.
I said that with such shame.
I
Yeah,
know.
I
You're like,
graduated from high school.
I'm learned. Ooh.
I barely graduated though. I barely graduated. I had to graduate in summer school after like my whole year graduated without me because I missed one credit.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm an idiot.
Well, Joe's more educated than me because he graduated and then he became a police officer in nearby Eastvale. At age 19, he was promoted to the chief of police.
What?
Is this in the show? Tell me this is in the show.
No, that wasn't in the show at all. I wish
That
it
wasn't
was.
in the show at all, dude.
Why? Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's like,
I was always
Sheriff
wondering.
Joe-
Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say Sheriff Joe from Arizona, you know, that 80-year-old.
Oh, Joe
racist
Arpaio.
guy?
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And then like Joe
Arpaio.
Exotic had like a police chief off. That's fucking reality TV.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
if he died?
I bet
Fucking-
Everybody died. Everybody died in a shootout, and he was the only one left. How else does a 19-year-old become police chief?
Yeah. Right.
Oh,
he was probably walking around the town like spinning his gun on his finger all the time.
Now that's a sheriff. Yeah.
Jesus.
Only a few officers worked under him, and serious crimes were rare. Joe felt accepted by his colleagues, but he was only beginning to come to terms with his sexuality. Joe hadn't yet told his parents that he was gay when one of his siblings outed him to his father, who made Joe shake his hand and promised not to attend his funeral.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did his sibling
Yeah.
know? Did he try to bang him too?
it's like fucked up, but I love how civil it was. He's like, "We're gonna have a gentleman's agreement here. Shake my hand, boy."
Yeah.
Boy,
Like, what a way to
your
be just
queer
like,
ass ain't coming to my funeral.
no.
And then he turned around and put hand sanitizer on right away.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of like the reaction my dad had when I told him I was a vegetarian. I think it would have been it would have been a lot better if I came out of the closet. He'd be like, "Well, I understand that. I always thought that." And then but telling him I was a vegetarian, I might as well. That's out of the wheel right there.
What did he do specifically?
Ridiculed me mostly. I think he just got bored and gave up.
Oh, shit.
I don't hear about it too much anymore. Every now and again, he'll just hang his head in shame and tell his friends, "Yeah, he's on some vegetable diet or something." Pretty great. I was gonna go to his funeral anyway, so
Because he's made of meat. I get it.
Because he's made of meat.
he's made of meat.
Dude, we didn't have a funeral for my dad. That's how little he mattered in our lives. Like, when he died, we were like, okay, well, he's at the VA hospital, and they'll take care of the body. It was
Oh.
gnarly. Yeah.
Yeah, that is gnarly.
Anyway, let's move on from that. Joe felt accepted by his colleagues. Oh, I got that part. Okay. Not long after, he was approaching a bridge in his police cruiser and decided that he wanted to die. he veered into a concrete barrier, nearly plummeting over the edge of the bridge. He survived, but he was severely injured. So that's why he has that limp.
Oh yeah, no, I remember that part.
I thought it was
Yeah.
from taking
Yeah.
his husband's hog.
Wait, how old was he when he tried to kill himself?
Like 20.
20.
He
Yeah.
was like the chief of police. He had the whole world in his hands.
Well, yeah, all of Oklahoma County.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Jesus.
Yes. Oh, those Corona counts, baby.
Yeah, welcome. Mike.
All right, are we back, Carlos?
Chief enough to fight my
Yeah,
dad.
yeah, we're back up.
You're gonna fight your dad and not go to his funeral.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's reconvene. What are you having? What is that?
This part of the podcast is brought to you by
It's
Unita?
brought to
Did
you.
you say that?
Unita? I don't know.
Whatever.
Unita.
Hey, fucktards over there at your goddamn beer company. Look what I'm doing.
You into that shit's great.
What? Also,
You into?
Let's
coffee for assholes.
Oh, what happened to Mike?
Oh no.
Oh, there he is.
Carlos,
He's back.
your body disappeared.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting a beer.
Oh,
He
okay.
does that.
I'm getting beer.
Here, Lou.
Where's
Oh,
Lou? Let's
shit.
see him.
Come on up.
Louie!
Yeah, what's up, dude?
Aw.
Look at the camera. Don't look at yourself.
Lou.
Yes, right here.
Aw.
Aw.
Dude, I miss
Oh, I'm
dogs
gonna
so
beer
much.
over. God, what a dick. What?
Oh, I miss dogs.
Ow.
I miss people. I miss dogs. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's just clap back, and this is now we are reconvening the pod. Okay.
Break time.
Um,
God damn it.
What?
Back to the tiger cage.
Yeah. This is a long one. In 1986, Joe, his brother Gerald, and Joe's first husband, Brian Ryan, who he met at a bar in Dallas and married in an unofficial ceremony, bought
I'm sorry,
a
did you just say his name is Brian Ryan?
Brian Ryan.
Ryan, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I got two first names. You know, because in the fucking South, how they name people like Heather Ashley and
Ricky Bobby.
fucking Bobby and yeah.
Tiger King.
I totally see a married guy named and my husband Ryan Brian.
They bought a pet store together in Arlington. For the first few years, they sold reptiles, birds, and small fish. Joe and Gerald were both clever about finding ways to make money. Gerald would dumpster dive behind furniture and carpet stores and turn the trash into cat playgrounds and dog houses, where he would sell those. They used,
So he was already doing meth by this point, right?
yeah. Look, I made this cat house. They used the money to expand their store, buying bigger cages for small exotic pets, like 3 banded armadillos and 4-eyed possums. I don't know what the fuck a 4-eyed possum is.
It's a possum in glasses.
Yeah.
The fucking nerd possum is what it is. Nerd!
That's why it learned to play dead, is because it was getting beat up so much by all the jocks. Okay. Never mind. Then, in October of 1997, disaster struck. Gerald was hit by a drunk driver outside Dallas. He died within a week.
Jesus.
Oh, fuck.
Everybody who fucks Joe Exotic dies.
Everyone who touches Joe dies, yes.
Dude, it's like more fucking tragic than the Kennedy family.
And more
We lost
pers-
Michael Isaacs.
I'm still here. Just give me 1 second.
Okay, as long as you
Keep
can hear
go-
us,
keep-
that's the
keep
important
going.
part. Yeah, okay. Two of the darkest moments in Joe's life, his attempted suicide and the death of his brother, had happened in Texas. Joe needed a change. The pet store was not the same without Gerald, so Joe decided to sell it. He never forgot his brother's love of wild animals, though, and with the help of $140,000 his family had won in the lawsuit related to Gerald's death, he bought 16 acres of land about an hour south of Oklahoma City. Joe poured cement sidewalks and built a row of 9 cages. The Gerald Wayne Exotic Animal Memorial Park opened 2 years to the day after Gerald's death.
Andy, can we take a minute to see what the fuck is going on with Michael Isaacs right now?
Hey. Hey, Joe.
Right now, Michael?
Say what?
Are you there right now?
Yeah, I am in the field right now with Joe.
Hi, Joe!
There you go. Big hands.
That's right,
Oh,
Joe.
shit.
All right, don't mind me.
Badass.
I love that I was so, like, bent on reading this, I didn't notice that. So yeah, he used all of his like DUI traffic money or death money to build the Gerald Wayne Exotic Animal Park.
DUI.
I got a DIY, I did it all.
Fucking spirit, dude. Don't let the fucking major labels fucking dictate how you're gonna get caught drunk driving. Rock, no.
Yeah.
Word spread quickly that Joe had opened an animal sanctuary, and people began dropping off exotic animals that they no longer wanted. 2 of Gerald's pets, a deer and a buffalo, were the zoo's first inhabitants. How do you have a pet buffalo?
Buffalo? Jesus.
They don't do much.
Yeah.
They just stand around and eat grass. It's probably a pretty easy pet to have, actually.
Dude?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go get one after the economy recovers and let us know, Mike.
I would if I had.
It's just like 1,200 pounds. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'd tell everybody, look at my fucking buffalo. I bet you want to eat it. You can't. Fuck you. Oh, dude. All this shit.
Wait for it to grow wings,
I
dude.
call them the fucking Portland Buffalo Rescue. And,
PBR, Portland Buffalo Rescue.
Yep. You heard it here first, God damn it.
Waiting for that $1,200 to come in.
Yes.
But it's not socialism, it's a freedom check. God damn it.
In the year 2000, there came a mountain lion and then a bear. And then Joe got a call from a game warden telling him that someone had abandoned 2 tigers in a backyard near Ardmore.
In a backyard?
Yeah. What if you just woke up one day and saw 2 tigers in your backyard?
I'd be like, God damn it, Jason, you need to go mow the fucking lawn like I told you. It's like a jungle out there.
They were his very first tigers. He named them Tess and Tickles. They bred, and Joe raised their cubs. The beautiful beasts were hardly running free, but here they were up close. Gerald would have loved it, Joe thought. Trouble started early. In 1999, in 1999, when the park was still under construction, Joe agreed to transport a flock of emaciated emus that had been rescued from a large pen in Red Oak, just south of Dallas, Michael Isaacs, wasn't your story about emus that you told
Yeah.
once?
I lived
Yeah.
next to a farm growing up.
Yeah.
There are emus on
make
the farm.
I want to hear that emu noise again.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dude, that's spot on. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. How long did that take you?
I just learned it when I was a kid, man.
It's like learning to swim. You don't remember not being able to do it. Right?
Wait, let me try it. Gulp, gulp. Is that
That's
it?
deeper. It's deeper in the throat.
Ooh.
All right, now do a brant.
A brant?
Aquatic bird.
I have no idea what that is.
It's like a robot.
Do it! No, I'm kidding.
If you give me an example, I'll try. I'm the voice guy.
I thought you had the bird sounds down. That's cool.
Wow, 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 wow.
Tony over here. I'm just kidding.
Okay. So Joe agreed to transport a flock of emaciated emus. Some of the emus escaped while he was loading them up and headed for the freeway. Joe shot at least 6 of them, and they flailed around like chickens that had just been beheaded before they died.
Oh my God, that is terrifying.
Jesus.
Yeah.
A chicken with its head cut off, basically. That's 3 feet high and fucking thick.
Fucking sick.
Local law enforcement and the SPCA blasted Joe for his recklessness, but a grand jury declined to indict him on animal cruelty charges. Tragedy struck again in December 2001 when his husband, Brian Ryan.
I thought it was Brian.
It's Brian Ryan, but his name's Brian Ryan now.
Thought it was Brian Rhyme.
Brian Ryan, but we're calling him Brian Ryan. Anyway, this is his last part in the story because he passed away from a deadly infection.
Of course he did.
Yeah. His funeral was held at the zoo. Within a year, Joe had a new lover and life partner, a 24-year-old named J.C. Hartpence. Aided by Hartpence's experience as an event producer, Joe developed a traveling animal and magic show where kids could pet tiger cubs while learning about conservation. He used stage names like Aaron Alex, Cody Ryan, and Joe Exotic.
Cody Ryan, the magician.
Aaron.
What was Aaron Alex?
Yeah, Aaron Alex. What a catchy name.
I'm telling you, dude, the fucking South, man. They're the best. They're like, we suck at everything, so we got to give it. At least we got more names than you.
And they're all first names.
Yeah.
Soon, Joe needed more employees to help run the zoo and the road show. In the summer of 2003, he hired 19-year-old boy named John Finlay. He moved in with Joe, and within a month, they were in a relationship. So
Nice.
I think
Wait, what the fuck's up with this single name motherfucker? Are you sure it was John Sean or John Paul or John?
Unfortunately, it was a legitimate last name. I'm so sorry.
I'm losing my respect for old Joe. Getting sloppy with this selection here.
He's still way too young. Does that help? He's still way too
Wait,
young.
he's not-
Nah, we're focused on the name thing, not the age.
Joe's lost his edge. By this point, Joe's relationship with Hartpence was already breaking apart. Hartpence was addicted to drugs and alcohol and had become disillusioned with Joe's intention for the zoo. Hartpence wanted to see it become a rehab and release sanctuary with large enclosures where the animals had room to roam. Joe, on the other hand, was increasingly buying new animals from breeders and breeding animals of his own for profit. In mid-2003, Hartpence walked into this office and found a piece of paper on the desk. It was a printed color photograph of the zoo's largest tiger, Goliath, menacingly baring his teeth over a large slab of meat. JC's remains was typed in white letters over the picture.
Wait,
This-
just like the words JC's remains.
Yeah, Joe took a picture of his scariest tiger and like wrote JC's remains over the piece of meat that the tiger was
I
eating in
wonder-
the photo.
Wow,
wonder
Jesus
what he was trying to
Christ.
say.
Yeah. Wait a second. So is that the first meme?
Yes, it was. Joe invented memes.
Very innovative.
Jack
Um,
of all trades.
Yeah.
I did like
Go
his,
Jack.
it looked like his TV show was, go ahead, sorry.
oh, no, it's fine. Everyone's funny. Attached
No, his-
was a post. What?
Go ahead.
Okay. I like that you're just interrupting me to say go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Attached was a post-it note that read, "If you don't get your shit together, this is going to be your reality." Hart Pence recognized the handwriting as Joe's. One night, Hart Pence waited until Joe fell asleep and then pointed a loaded.
Joe's handwriting probably just looks like a little kid's like scratch.
Oh yeah, for sure. There were backwards letters in it.
Yeah.
Misspelled words in the
a 4-year-old.
in there. Extra letters for the. Yeah, get your shit together, boy.
Signed
One
police.
night.
Joe.
Oh, go ahead.
I said signed policeman Joe.
Go ahead.
That was awesome. Hi, Lou. That's the cutest dog ever. One night, Hart Pence waited until Joe fell asleep and then pointed a loaded 45 and a .357 Magnum at his partner's head. Joe woke up to the click of the guns cocking. "I want out," Hart Pence told him. "Are we clear?" Joe talked Hart Pence into putting down his guns and then called the police. Hart Pence was arrested at the zoo and never returned.
So when he called the police, did his cell phone ring? Oh, shit, it's me! God damn it! I gotta do everything around here.
As Joe's zoo grew and his traveling show booked more events, he began to attract more scrutiny from animal rights groups and federal regulators. In July 2004, the Oklahoman published an article, that's the name of the newspaper, is the Oklahoman. It published an article about a crippled lion cub named Angel that had been born at the zoo, a possible result of inbreeding. No legitimate animal sanctuary would allow that to happen. Would allow that to happen. Why did I say apple? No legitimate animal sanctuary would allow that to happen, said one activist quoted in the piece.
What, incest?
Oh, yeah.
Is that?
Guess who that activist was, guys? It was Carol Baskin.
Ah.
Oh, boy. In 2006, the U.S. Department of Agriculture suspended Joe's license for 2 weeks and fined him $25,000 for a long list of violations, including failing to provide adequate veterinary care and failing to remove feces from animal enclosures. Later that year, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals published a video showing what they alleged was mistreatment of the animals at Joe's Zoo and the animals that he used in the roadshow. PETA's footage showed employees discussing irregular feeding schedules, swatting animals, and in one case, striking a tiger with the butt of a rifle. The organization critiqued the zoo for allegedly churning out litters of tigers, lions, and bears and other exotic animals, claiming that some are deformed, likely because of inbreeding or inadequate nutrition for the mother during the pregnancy. Local and federal investigators arrived at the zoo to investigate the allegations, but ultimately no charges were filed. By then, the little 16-acre zoo.
Inbred tigers looked cute as fuck. I mean, I love a Frenchie. Short little snouts, dude.
Cross-eyed. Smells cute. Got wide, big foreheads and like wide. Their eyes are like really far apart. Play the banjo.
Yeah.
Banjo playing tigers. That's how you can tell they're inbred. By then, The little 16-acre zoo had ballooned to hold more than 1,000 animals. There were more than 100 tigers, plus lions, chimps, leopards, baboons, alligators, and smaller reptiles. In 2001, the zoo reported total revenues of $117,000. By 2006, that number had grown to over 500,000, the vast majority from donations. Alongside the growth of his nonprofit zoo, I almost said nonprofit Jew.
Come on, Andy, that's not a thing.
What's the opposite of an oxymoron?
You're moving on, dude.
All right, I'll just go away for a while.
You got canceled.
Yeah.
So he sold, in the zoo gift shop, he sold Joe Exotic branded skincare products, alcohol, and condoms. Later, he opened a bar 2 miles down the road from the zoo called Safari Bar, and then a pizza joint called Zooters. He was building a brand. What do you guys think of that? Zooters, yeah. Zooters, dude.
Z. Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah.
That sounds more like a Bhagavan kind of activity.
I know. Yeah. Bhagavan isn't in this article at all.
Really?
No. He wasn't really a part of Joe's life. He just was commenting on all of it, you know?
Yeah. He was
Yeah.
he was interesting.
Yeah.
He was like a true cult leader.
Yeah.
You know? Joe Exotic's just a cool guy that everybody wants to be around. But like Bhagavan was like manipulating people.
Was Bhagavan the one with like the ponytail that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
The cool guy.
He was a doctor in mysticism.
Yeah.
Wasn't he using?
Yeah, he wasn't a real doctor.
So he was not. I love that they called him that for like the first 3 episodes, and finally like, so what are you a doctor in? And he's like, metaphysical sciences. Or one of his wives or slaves or whatever.
Oh my god.
And she says it so straight faced. She's like,
brainwashed. He's the doctor. This is what I belong.
Just keeps winking a lot.
Yeah.
You belong here too. You can have the doctor. He's mine.
Wasn't Bhagavan selling or like using animals in movies? Was that his job?
He did Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
He was Ace Ventura's animal guy.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying he gave the animals to that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Air Bud, maybe.
No, he was the character that they
Right,
made
yeah.
Ventura off
Oh.
He reminded me of Tim Robbins' character in High Fidelity.
Yeah, totally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I loved watching you guys all get that. I love watching your brains work.
You know that fucker smells like patchouli. You know.
Yeah.
Oh
He
yeah,
actually-
totally.
Green.
He's a co-owner of Portland Buffalo Rescue. Actually, he's sponsoring that. Okay, callback didn't work. Never mind.
These people are making $100 a day.
What?
These people are making $100 a day, and they're
Yeah.
working like 16-hour days.
Oh yeah. I
Fucking
mean, at least
insane.
they're making money. It's hard to make money when you're in a cult. So you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're still making more money than comedians.
Yeah, well, they were calling out Baskins for all of Baskins people were volunteers.
Yeah. And she was
Yeah.
making a
Yeah.
fuck ton of money. She was charging
Mhm.
more than Joe. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
speaking of that bitch Carol,
Yeah.
more than 1,000 miles from Joe's Zoo in Tampa, Florida, animal rights activist Carol Baskin was increasingly paying attention to Joe's exploits. Baskin was born at Laughlin Air Force Base in San Antonio. Raised in Florida, she'd hoped to be a veterinarian someday. In 1991, she married Don Lewis, a wealthy real estate investor. They gloss over their first date. Do you guys remember how she met him?
No.
She was walking around downtown and she was crying, And he drove up to her and was like, "You want to get in my car?" And then she was like, "No, that's crazy." And then he drove around the block and came back, and he had a gun in the car, and he was like, "I
Oh,
won't
right.
hurt you."
Gun. You can train it on me.
Yeah.
Talk.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
their
Billionaire, you
first
know?
date.
Jesus.
I mean, who
Um,
wouldn't have got? I would have got in.
Yeah, he would have done it.
I mean, I would
Hey,
have
it
got
was
in.
a free gun.
I'm like, I got places to go, man. You're driving shit.
Wait, stop by Popeyes. The welfare office.
This ain't the scariest car I've been in. You're just a rich old man.
The next year, Lewis bought her a bobcat named Wind Song. Isn't that cute?
Aw.
Wind Song. Baskin and her husband had saved it from an animal auction where one bidder told Baskin he planned to club the cat over the head and stuff it. Baskin and her husband,
As you do with cats.
yeah.
Go
And
on.
then you mount it on the wall and it's all like, "Rawr," you know, but that's all a lie. I don't know why I'm sweating so much since I'm topless, but anyway, Baskin and her husband quickly realized Windsong needed a playmate, or else she would tear apart their home. They found a man in Minnesota who agreed to sell them a second bobcat. Baskin was horrified when they arrived and discovered a metal shed full of bobcats being bred and slaughtered for their fur. She and Lewis bought every cat they could take back with them, 56 in all. That is fuck you money. When you're, first of all, when you want to buy a bobcat, that means you're rich. And then when you like impulse buy 56 bobcats, holy
Well,
shit.
hang on. How much were they? Because you know, if it's a buyer's market, a bobcat buyer's market, you can you gotta be rich.
Yeah.
You're rich with love once you get all them kitty cats home.
Mike, I feel like this is turning you into more and more of a redneck. Like you're
Dude, I
identifying
got
more.
the fucking character for this shit. You not hear me? I haven't showered. I had a tattoo appointment down at the local jail to get my fucking, you know, but they were closed because of the coronavirus. Oh, God. Fucking terrible. It's all for theater. It's for art. It's for. I'm actually kind of drunk too.
Dude, and we're in quarantine. Of course you're drunk.
Yeah. I've
What?
been waking up at like 2 a.m, unable to sleep, and then I'm like, well, I guess I'll have a beer. That'll put me to sleep.
I'll start drinking.
Yeah. The alcohol industry is doing great.
Yeah, we're all living like one of Joe's boyfriends right now.
We're not able to leave our properties just like his boyfriends. Yeah. So Baskin, that bitch Carol Baskin and Lewis continued to buy exotic cats that were destined for death at the hands of fur traders. 28 more in 94, 22 in 95. They acquired 40 acres of land and built Big Cat Rescue, a sanctuary that, much like Joe's Zoo, continued to grow as people who owned big cats became disenchanted with the animals they had bought. As Baskin's reputation grew, she became inundated with calls and emails from people asking if certain sanctuaries were legitimate or not, and wondering where they should donate their animals. She eventually started a website where she compiled detailed reports on private zoos and sanctuaries. She called it 911animalabuse.com. The tagline, find out who the real bad guys are.
Right. She's basically advertising, hey, you want to abuse your animals? Call this number. We'll show you how fucking bad we are.
Yeah.
Find out right here, boy. Does she talk like that? I don't think, no.
What?
She more looks like she's on drugs all the time. She's just like,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That flower thing on her head.
yeah. She's like, I'm a hippie.
God, what a
like
bitch.
the murdering.
A murder hit. She's like a Charles Manson kind of hippie, not. Yeah. Baskin had a controversial background of her own. Lewis, her husband, disappeared in 1997 and was never found. Baskin was not a suspect in Lewis's disappearance, but she was accused in the media by Lewis's children amid a dispute over his estate. An article in People suggested that she might have fed Lewis's remains to the tigers, an unfounded theory that would repeatedly propagated by Baskin's growing list of enemies. Many exotic animal owners and private zoo operators despised Baskin for tracking their USDA violations and alleged mistreatment of animals. She frequently faced retaliation. She once opened her mailbox to find it teeming with snakes.
What?
Yeah. That
That's
sounds like a German porn, dude.
Porn.
On another occasion, after a tense Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission hearing about feral cats, she was physically attacked in the parking lot. How long has this gone on by now? Are we at like an hour and a half?
No, we're about an hour in, probably.
Okay, we're gonna end up doing this in 2 different segments because like this story hasn't even begun yet. Yeah.
Dude, this article is so long. It's like you're barely halfway through it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's almost as long as one of Joey's boyfriend's dicks, dude.
I wonder if, like, after he blew his brains out, he cut his dick off and stuffed it. His trophy.
Oh, Jesus.
And mounted.
It mounted him. Walked my dog in there. Here you go. Come on, Lou. Shit, what? We're not. I thought we were going. We're going pretty good there. What happened, boys?
You gotta get back into character. I really hate the way this background makes my hair look. I look even more like that guy that you always tell me I look like, Matt Cobos from Metalocalypse.
Oh yeah, totally.
Oh, dude. No, you look like Eugene Levy from fucking American Pie. It's background, not always. Never mind.
I'm not a vain person, but I can't handle that. What that's doing to my hair. Oh wow, you're in San Francisco, Michael. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Damn, you travel.
Trying to do something new here. There we go.
Ooh.
Oh, no!
So good.
Oh my God, you're obsessed with me.
Perfect.
Holy shit.
This is the most fun I've had in weeks, guys.
It's
All
primo.
right.
Who's our audience again?
What?
My hands.
Oh, God,
God,
they're so
I forget
big.
they won't fit on the screen.
Welcome back to People Enjoying Terrible Accidents. We're in episode 2 of Joe Exotic. Michael Isaacs, take that off your phone.
All right, I'll change it. There we go. Back to normal.
It's so good.
Things are going horribly. We're all stuck in rooms, and we're doing this podcast, and it's disintegrating.
Oh, guys, Mike Stanley joined us.
Oh, did he?
Really?
It was with his hair down. It looks like Mike.
Oh. Mike Brunken doesn't even know who Mike Stanley is, though.
Okay.
I did invite Mike Stanley to do it because I thought it'd be so funny to have 3 mics on the podcast.
Yes.
It's so weird because it's such a rare name. I can't believe that. Like, there's like, I never run into another Mike, honestly.
Until you go to the South and run into somebody named Mike.
It's my boy Michael Mike and my other boy Michael. Third son Michael, and then this is my 4th boy Michael. God, tell them apart.
You're starting to get crazy eyes, Mike Brunken.
You know, my mom wanted to name me Omar, and my dad didn't happen. And he's like, you know what? Let's give him the most basic fucking name that I can think of, and I'm even going to say it with the goddamn fucking filthy Southern accent. We're calling this boy Michael.
Didn't your dad have like 13 kids?
That he knows of. Didn't he have them? He still has them, as far as I know.
Okay.
Which
Only one of
NBA
them's-
team did your
Only
dad
one of
play?
them's dead. Shit.
Oh boy.
That's probably fake news. That's what the fucking goddamn liberal fucking media wants you to do.
Okay.
God damn.
Let's go back to that bitch Carol Baskin, shall we? Okay. You know what's funny about my hair is that it looks like this even when we're not in quarantine. Okay. Anyway, Carol began to receive concerning phone calls and emails. People were asking why her sanctuary was sponsoring traveling roadshows that allowed cub petting, something it didn't do. Carol soon realized what was happening. Joe had been using the Big Cat Rescue name and logo to advertise his shows in order to troll her. And in 2011, she sued him in federal court for trademark infringement. As the court battle dragged on that year, Joe, who had begun to refer to himself as Tiger King, started posting frequent tirades about Baskin online. Joe had built a television studio at a zoo and had been regularly broadcasting episodes of Joe Exotic TV on a website he had created. On Christmas Day in 2011, Joe left a comment beneath an article about the zoo by a local news station in Oklahoma. Oh wait, I gotta do it in his accent. Dear Carol Baskin, you should watch my show this Tuesday, as it's going to be about your backyard zoo and why you have not found your husband's body. The next time you step foot in my business, you better run and hide real far fast. So this is a promise to you this Christmas. You want to take this BS to the next level? Let's play. Let's see if you're up to it. You don't know how crazy I can be.
She is the Hillary Clinton to his Alex Jones.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is.
I don't appreciate you disparaging Joe Exotic like that, but Nerf Alex Jones.
You know,
They got
Mike
similar
Brunken-
vibes.
Mike Brunken takes his shirt off and hangs out for an hour, and he becomes a full-fledged fascist.
First of all, Alex Jones is a goddamn liberal compared to me. You ain't gonna disparage my future husband Joe by comparing him to fucking liberal.
Are you writing Joe letters in jail?
Every goddamn day till my dying breath, I will profess my love. Marco Rubio.
Travis Maldonado arrived at Joe Zoo in December 2013. He had struggled with meth addiction. I think this is the shirtless guy. Carlos, can you tell us if Travis
Wait,
Maldonado
did you
is
say the shirtless guy?
Oh, yeah, I know. But from Joe Exotic, the shirtless guy. You know, like the one with the meth mouth and all the tattoos.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No,
Still
that's
not narrowing it down at all.
That guy's name was John. That was one of his husbands.
Wait.
Yeah, when we was
What do
watching,
you
I said, what happened to his teeth? I said, boy, you'll find out soon enough. Now chop me another line. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. We were smoking it.
That was well done.
Wait,
So
what were
Travis
you asking me?
Oh, who Travis Maldonado was? I think he was the one
He's
with the
the-
meth mouth and was shirtless.
No, that's John
No,
Finley.
he's a Florida guy, right?
Oh, John Finley? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's John Finley.
Okay.
Travis Maldonado's the big hand dude that shot himself in the head.
Who's
Okay.
the guy in who's the Florida guy that was did 12 years for cocaine?
Oh, the Scarface guy.
Yeah.
What was that dude's name? Hold on. I have it right here.
They have the nicest facility out of all of them, from what I've seen so far. Again, I'm
Well,
only
because it was just for him, really. He wasn't like showing him off. It didn't seem.
yeah.
That's just like his
He's
art
like
collection.
Eric Cartman with the fucking theme park.
So Travis Maldonado arrived at Joe's Zoo in 2013. He had struggled with meth addiction back home in California, and one of Joe's employees suggested he take Maldonado in, thinking that working around animals would help him recover. Joe took a liking to Maldonado right away, and less than a month later, he, Maldonado, and Finlay were married in the three-way ceremony in the dance hall across the street from the zoo. I like
that was very sweet. They're all matching.
Yeah.
They all have the pink shirts on.
It's very progressive.
Did you notice though
Yeah.
who he kissed first?
Oh, big hands.
Yeah.
Who did he kiss first?
Big Hands got the second kiss. That's why
Ah.
he was placed in the pecking order and he wasn't pleased with it.
Mhm.
The Scarface dude with Mario Tarabe.
It's me, Mario.
Mario, it's me. It's me.
The wedding
Oh.
was a high point in what had otherwise turned out to be a tough year for Joe. For one thing, his relationship with Finlay soon began to fall apart. Finlay felt that Joe had become manipulative and controlling, and the park dominated their lives. They rarely left it for anything that wasn't work-related. Joe had also become obsessed with his web TV episodes, gaining more views, and he relied on increasingly wild stunts to drum up the excitement. Finlay had seen enough.
Why was he such a fiend for attention? I mean, was he a stand-up comic?
I know. If Joe had just gone to an open mic, this would all be a lot different. And oh my God, what are you drinking now? Are you drinking Corona during this coronavirus epidemic?
No, it's the high life, bud.
That's a champagne of beer right there.
Yeah, dude. This is what Joe would drink, dude.
I'm drinking LaCroix and vodka like I'm some sort of pussy.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I'm worried about carbs, guys. Anyway.
It's a poor man's White Claw. I get it. Uh-oh. Your mic cut out, Mike.
Mike. Oh.
Mike, talk.
Oh, Mike Brunken, your mic cut out.
Yeah.
Are you fucking with us? Oh. No, it cut out, dude.
This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by Ninkasi.
Yeah.
Ninkasi. On my fucking check.
We might get sponsored someday. I mean, no, we're not.
No.
I've lost so much money on this.
We're all drinking at noon. We might all get sponsored someday.
You want a man's gut? You drink a man's beer. Fuck, I came all the way back.
I wish
and I don't have anything to open my beer with.
Are you pretending to use your butt to open your beer?
I was unhooking my keys. Because you never know when I'm going to be mountain climbing. Need a carabiner.
All right.
Office? Which double?
Huh? Okay. Worse than losing. Okay. So Finlay felt that Joe had become manipulative and controlling. On August 18th, 2014, Finlay attacked Joe in the back parking lot. He was arrested and charged with assault and battery. Worse than losing another lover, Joe had lost the copyright infringement lawsuit filed by Baskin, and as a result, he owed her $1 million. He filed for bankruptcy, dissolved Gerald Wayne Exotic Animal Foundation Memorial Park, which was registered under his name, and had his associates form a new entity called the GW, Interactive Zoological Foundation, which temporarily kept the park safe from Baskin's debt collection efforts.
What did GW stand for?
Gerald, and that I'm thinking it standed for his brother Gerald.
Probably
And I don't know
George
what
Washington.
Gerald
Yeah,
Williams.
Gerald Wayne.
Gerald Wayne.
No, it stood for John Wayne, but he didn't know how to spell John. Hey, he got half of it right. Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect, am I right? Meanwhile, Joe had become increasingly paranoid that animal rights groups were sending spies to the zoo. He had repeatedly posted social media photos and videos of himself firing weapons and toying with explosives, warning animal rights activists, "Don't fuck with me!" No, Louie, put that down.
Oh, I fucked up. I didn't have the logo in the shot.
This dog's about to be
Trusted by 9 out of 10 dogs. Full sale glasses for Ninkasi beer.
You're really getting us to that Oregon microbrew market, and I love it. Isn't Full Sail out of business now? That's Widmer. Anyway, do you guys think I have a pretty good Joe Exotic accent? Like, I think I do a pretty good impression of him.
I mean, you're trying.
It works.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
It's enough.
fine.
Yeah.
It's working for you.
I was looking forward to going back to the mics with my Joe Exotic bits, you know? I'd say
Well,
at
it's
least,
the equivalent of just like a basic Chinese accent for Southern people that you're doing there.
I'd say it's at least as good as my
It's not
Werner Herzog
specific,
impression.
but you're in the ballpark. Yeah.
Say about me.
Okay, so he frequently addressed Baskin from his TV studio at the zoo. For Carol and all of her friends that are watching out here, if you think for 1 minute I was nuts before, I am the most dangerous exotic animal owner on this planet right now. And before you bring me down, it is my belief that you will stop breathing. Got that? Okay. I literally sound like my mom, so I'm gonna stop doing it.
When he says I'm the best, what did he say? I'm the most exotic animal owner.
Yeah, I'm the most dangerous exotic animal owner on the planet right now.
Do you think there's a comma after exotic? Like he's just saying that he's exotic?
I don't think Joe knows what a comma is.
Yeah, he doesn't
During another episode in February 2014, Joe brought out a blow-up doll with a blonde wig, apparently a crude rendering of Baskin. You want to know why Carol Baskin was better? Never, ever, ever see me face to face ever again? Joe asked before suddenly raising a pistol to the doll's head and pulling the trigger.
Whoa.
There was a loud bang and the doll keeled over. That is how sick and tired of this shit I am, Joe said. Have a great night, ladies and gentlemen, and I will see you tomorrow night.
You know, you'd think that as an officer of the law, he'd be a little bit more precautious about implicating himself.
Yeah.
He makes the rules, bud.
I am the law.
As he's doing blow off his gun barrel, loaded.
Blow off one of his girlfriends. You know that happens. You know that happens.
Oh, definitely.
Dude.
I want to become a cop just to do that now.
Hey, you don't have to be a cop to do a line off
No.
someone's dick.
I have done that, but anyway.
Yeah, you just have to have a gun.
Yeah, I definitely want to do a line off a fucking gun. This is a cry for help. Okay.
Me too, but I just need one of those little guns that chicks hide in their purse.
A little pink gun.
Just a little ball, dude. Just a little snooter.
Okay. On March 25th, 2015, the alligator compound at the zoo exploded in fire. All of the alligators but one were boiled alive. Also lost in the blaze, according to Joe, was his TV studio. Local investigators speculated that the fire was the result of arson. No one was ever arrested, but Joe claimed animal rights activists targeted the studio to shut me up. Do you guys think he did that himself?
Well, see, I
Like
think
burning the Reichstag?
I think he was definitely involved because any real redneck would just be mad about a big screen TV burning up.
I think he was.
It was in a TV studio, so it burned up a TV for sure.
Yeah.
Probably lost his favorite chair in there too.
Yeah.
My daddy gave me that lazy boy right before he disowned me.
Right before he shook my hand. By then, Joe had been moving towards a settlement that would have ended Baskin's continuing litigation to collect the $1 million judgment. After a 10-hour-long mediation hearing in downtown Oklahoma City, the parties reached an agreement. Joe would pay modest monthly settlements towards the $1 million judgment. He would keep the zoo, but could no longer offer cub petting and would stop breeding big cats. Baskin's lawyers sent a draft of the agreement to Joe's attorneys, thinking their legal saga was nearly over. Days went by, and they heard no response from Joe or his attorneys. The mediator set up a conference call with Joe and his legal team on November 12, 2015, to see what was holding things up. An unfamiliar voice came over the line. "There is no deal. We're not doing this deal." Someone asked who was speaking. "Jeff Lowe," the voice said. Mike, did you guys get to Jeff Lowe in Joe Exotic yet?
No.
I don't think so, no.
Okay. This
He's a
guy
loser.
is like,
This is
What?
the meth guy, right?
yeah, this
Yeah,
guy
I'm not
is,
there yet.
this guy is so
He's like
sketchy.
a con artist.
Yeah.
He's a con
There's, like-
artist and shit.
There's all of these cons that we're about to find out that are like insane.
Yeah.
Joe first met Lowe around June of 2015 when Jeff Lowe stopped by the zoo to buy a baby Tyliger cub. Joe had marveled as Lowe pulled up in a Hummer towing a trailer that had once been owned by Evel Knievel. Joe had once managed Evel's son, Robbie. He paid $7,500 cash for the Tyliger and told Joe that he planned to open a sanctuary in Colorado. Lowe invited Joe and Maldonado to his house here in September of the year. The law changed and they'd legally wed. The trip was their honeymoon. They went skydiving and hung around the pool. Joe was having health problems, and he had become increasingly worried about what would happen to the zoo if he died or could no longer manage it. According to Joe, Jeff Lowe offered to put the zoo in his name to ensure that it never went to Baskin. So basically, he sold the zoo to Baskin in order to he sold the zoo to Jeff Lowe in order to avoid Baskin having any rights over it. I feel like I lost everybody here. Are we all together?
I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
Joe agreed, believing that he had found a wealthy benefactor. Lowe had his own shady history. This part is insane. In 2007, he was sued by the musician Prince for allegedly selling clothes with Prince's trademarked symbol on him.
So he's one of those guys that stands in the parking lot selling bootleg shirts before a concert.
Yeah, but he made a fortune off of it.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. The next year, Lowe pleaded guilty to federal mail fraud charges after he posed as an employee of a charity for domestic abuse victims to obtain $1 million worth of merchandise that he later resold.
Holy shit.
Oh Jesus.
This guy is
Yeah.
as shit.
This guy is a
looks in
piece
that
of shit.
documentary.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
looks
Yeah.
terrible in that documentary.
Already.
You love him, Mike. Are you getting inspired?
This is a man that knows what he wants.
Free Joe, lock up Jeff.
Or lock them up together. Whole new show.
Hell yeah, because then Joe will fuck him and he'll die, dude.
The Joe Jeff show. This is the Joe Jeff jail show.
Yeah.
Lowe moved to the zoo in Oklahoma and lived with Joe in the main house while waiting for his own residence to be built on the property. Within a few months, however, the relationship between the two men soured. Both men had strong personalities, and tensions were high now that they shared the same space and essentially co-owned the zoo. Meanwhile, Baskin's continued attempts to collect on the $1 million only agitated Joe more. Around the same time, a former Dallas strip club owner named James Garrison started spending more time around the zoo.
Was
He
James
decided he wanted to
in the
open.
documentary?
What?
Was James in the documentary?
Yeah, he's the fat dude.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah,
that guy's
yeah.
a piece of shit too.
Yeah. God, Mike,
He
for
was
a
just a
second, out of the
little
corner of my
rat.
eye, I thought you were taking us to the bathroom with you.
Oh, well, you're coming with me.
I am.
We're going to do a practice run right now. There you go. There's the toilet. I'll see if I hold the camera out here. It's all in your imagination. Can I move it over here?
On my screen, Matt's your dick. He's right beneath you.
Again, jeez.
I am getting dizzy. Oh my god. Okay, so the fat dude's name is James Garrison, and he started spending time around the zoo. He had decided he wanted to open an exotic animal-themed bed and breakfast.
Nice.
So we
Bring your
purchased
grandma
several
over.
tigers.
Let her get eaten by a tiger, dude.
Mike, that makes up for how unsavory those last few moments were that you just took us through. This makes up for it.
You enjoyed every goddamn second of those last few moments.
Imagining Portland, this is what I imagined.
You never been to Portland?
No.
Like I got pot playing
What
in
the
a pint glass. Right here on the floor next to my guitar amplifier. And wait for it. I got all these books right here. If someone comes over, I can be like, yeah, I read. Sure, I know how to read. Look, if I didn't know how to read, what I'd be doing with all them there books right there.
BOOKS.
When you spelled that, I could still hear that the S was backwards.
I spelled it out ES.
All right. So Garrettson figured Joe thought he was connected to the crime world because he'd sometimes brought around people with lots of tattoos. And Joe told him he wanted to have Baskin killed and said that he could offer $10,000 for the job. Garrettson dismissively told Joe that he'd look around and never did. In February 2017,
What a
new
fucking
employee-
ass. That's like when you
What?
ask somebody. That's like when you ask somebody if you're like, hey man, can you find any mushrooms? And they're like, yeah, I'll look around, and they never get back to you, dude. We know
You're totally just sitting there waiting for them to fucking bring you some or to show up. So you're like not calling anybody else or checking around and say, hey, what's up? No, because my dude got me.
I know you got some bullets for that other guy's head. Why don't you help me out, dude?
It's like when someone asks you to tell a friend hi for you and you never say hi.
That's my favorite move.
In February 2017, a new employee at the zoo, Ashley Webster, walked up to say hello to Joe and Jeff Lowe and had overheard them talking about Baskin. Joe turned to this lady, Ashley Webster, and asked her if she traveled to Florida and put a bullet in Baskin's head for a few $1,000s. Webster became uncomfortable and she laughed it off to get out of the conversation, but she believed Joe was serious.
What?
That's just one of his employees.
Hypothetically speaking, now I ain't offering you, but if I was, would you?
That's the only reason she laughed it off is because that's just like us getting these $1,200 checks from the government. We're like, what the fuck is this gonna do?
Buy me a goddamn buffalo is what it's gonna do. Goddamn buffalo buyer market right now. Fucking give them sons of bitches away, and I got a fucking yard full of grass that motherfucker can eat. Free check, $1,200. Of course, whatever's left over, I'll be donating to Donald Trump's re-election.
You should give your.
He's given us so much. He sacrificed so much for us Americans.
I had a lady at work, because everyone at work knows I'm a comedian, of course, and I was transferring a call to this lady who works in the insurance department, and she was like, you know, I watched your YouTube the other day, and you're just so mean to Donald Trump. Everyone's just so mean to him. And I was trying to transfer a customer over.
Wait, the customer said this to you, or the fucking lady in the?
The lady in the insurance department. One of my coworkers.
Yeah.
Well, of course she works in the insurance department.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Was her name Carol Baskin?
It was Cheryl Maskin.
She does have two first names, but I'm not gonna dox her right now. About 2 weeks later, Webster quit her job and left a voicemail for Baskin, warning her of Joe's latest threats. I just want to apologize to you because I have believed the bullshit that Joe Exotic had said, Webster declared. I am currently here at his place right now, and I'm leaving. He was actually talking about paying someone to kill you. He tried to get me to do it. I'm not going to fucking do that. He was offering like a couple $1,000s. I feel like Joe is in danger.
Did they leave out the part where she said, because that's not enough money?
Yeah.
Baskin turned the voicemail over to her attorney, and it made its way to Special Agent Matthew Bryant with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which had been investigating Joe in the zoo for potential wildlife crimes. Murder for hire was not a crime that he typically saw.
I'm starting to understand why he wanted tigers so bad when he looked like that.
You might be watching, okay?
I lost my place.
I'm sorry.
I mean, just all that raw sex appeal. I mean, wow. Okay, so
Hey, that ain't for you. That's for Joe.
Okay, Matthew Bryant worked at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. He didn't typically do murder for hire in his job. After hearing Webster's voicemail, he met with FBI agent Andrew Faribault and some other federal prosecutors. In late August, Garrettson stopped by Joe's office, where Lowe pulled up a map on a computer that detailed Baskin's property in Tampa. He started showing me easy ways to kill her, Garrettson said later. Lowe noted that Baskin's Lowe noted Baskin's favored bike paths, pointed out the location in the gift shop at her sanctuary, and showed images of her house, which sat isolated at the edge of an inlet. Joe then came in and placed a thick manila folder on the desk. He said it contained detailed information on Baskin. This is exhausting.
It's been a long session. I get it.
This is so long.
Some of those dicks, dude. Jesus.
I mean, I know we were all super busy. Thank you for contributing and sharing your time with me.
You're welcome. I had a lot to get done.
I know.
I have to finish the rest of this sentence on my chest.
I just love that we're looking at Mike's guitars and his dog and his weed. Like, how Portland can you fucking get, dude?
Jesus Christ, we know you play Yola Tango on that thing.
I'm just gonna take a break for a second because I'm out of breath, dude. Okay.
I was listening to you, but I was also in there going pay.
Do you know any Yola Tango?
I didn't take you with you. Oh, dude, there's that one song that's like. You guys know that?
Well,
it's the only good song they ever made.
Yeah.
Really.
The one that rocks, dude. I get it.
Yeah. Dude, you got it.
Dude,
You got
people at Yola Tango concerts hate it when I'm headbanging there, dude. I was like, get up, you piece. Wipe those tears off your face. Jesus.
holy shit. I just realized Yola Tango and Yo-Yo Ma were two different things this moment.
Yo-Yo Ma's the
Jesus Christ.
player.
I was thinking
God.
being really satirical, and I'm like, oh wait, Yola Tango, okay. Anyway.
Oh my
Yo-Yo,
God.
that was a song they covered. That was a Yo-Yo Ma song that they covered.
Yeah. Yo-Yo Ma is a happier Yola Tango.
It's unclear whether Lowe was seriously plotting to end Baskin's life. If he was, Gerritsen learned he was also working other angles. Later that month, according to Gerritsen, Lowe suggested he call Baskin behind Joe's back and ask if she wanted to purchase the zoo. That Lowe was trying to sell the zoo to Baskin.
What?
So that, yeah,
I
they
didn't know
don't cover that in the documentary either.
Yeah, what the fuck? That's a huge piece.
Yeah.
Wait, what part? What happened?
Jeff Lowe, the sleazy guy, was trying to sell the zoo to Carol Baskin.
What?
Yeah.
After he sold
Why
to
did they
him.
leave that out?
I know. He told
Holy
Gerritsen to let
fuck, that's the
Baskin.
huge part.
Yeah, it's crazy that they
Sorry.
left it out. He told Gerritsen to let
Why?
Baskin know that all of Joe's files and computers would be included in the sale. Lowe told Gerritsen he was offering up Joe to Baskin on a silver platter. Like, if I was Baskin, I would have done it, dude.
Yeah, I mean, she might have been running out of dead husband money at that point. You know?
True.
She was looking
Wait,
at
how much
Joe
do you
and
think
was
that
like,
new guy that she's dating is worth?
He looks like he's worth like $20.
The guy that looks like
Get
Mitch
strap
McConnell.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Skinny
Yeah,
Mitch
totally. He was so weird. He had he always had this frown face.
You know, she I ain't gonna call her a gold digger, but she ain't, you know. My grandma had a habit of doing this, you know, obviously before I was born, but she had 6 husbands in her life, and they all died for some reason. And she
What?
left a little bit wealthier each time. Yeah, and I think like 5 of them died, and then she divorced one of them and took half his shit, and then she married her last husband, who was also well-to-do, but he survived. He made it.
Dude, your grandma's pussy must have been awesome.
He's doing something, man. He's got some big old titties.
Good for you, man.
Well, I mean, it was good for her. She's the one who fucking cleaned up. But she like married a 50. She married a 55-something-year-old dude. Get out of the way. When she was like 20, and, like single mom with my dad. Fucker died in a year, and she took all his shit.
What did he die from?
Natural causes. No, I don't remember. I think he had like a heart attack or something, but he was like 55. But again, it was like in the 50s, so 55 might have been pushing it. Anyway,
Yeah.
whole point is there ain't nothing wrong with marrying rich people and then, having them leave you all your money because they love you. I think Carol clearly didn't know her husband was going to disappear. I don't know. What?
Carol did it. She did it, dude.
Yeah. That's awesome. This is inspiring.
I also, when I was in there peeing just now, took a rip. So, I'm a little lost now.
From this angle, it looks like your grandma's tits running the family.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Call it an aim right there.
Sick, dude.
Oh my god. This is so exhausting and I love it. Okay.
What the fuck else are we gonna do?
I know.
Count
This is so
things?
much fun.
Count all the books I got here to make me look smart? Sorry.
When Bryant asked Garrettson to be a confidential informant, he agreed. Bryant showed Garrettson how to work a concealed recording device so he can capture his conversations on video and an audio recorder so that he could tape phone calls. Bryant had a plan to set up Joe with an undercover agent posing as a hitman. If Garrettson could convince Joe to hire the undercover agent, they would gain control over the situation rather than having to discover and try to stop any plot that Joe may have been working on in secret. In September of 2017, Garrettson recorded his first conversation with Joe, signing on as a confidential informant. He met Joe outside his office at the zoo. Garrettson said, "When is she ever gonna fucking stop?" Joe replied, "She won't stop until somebody shoots her. Her day is coming, man." On October 6, 2017, Joe's phone rang with news of another disaster at the zoo. Mike, this is when Travis Maldonado shoots himself in the face.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, gee.
According to Joe, Maldonado had been joking around with the staff at the zoo's gift shop. He was showing off his Ruger pistol. In an effort to prove something he thought he had read on the internet, this is what
I read you can't even shoot yourself. You ain't programmed that way, and this here's a simulation. Damn fucking globalists don't want you to know about it, but anyway.
Okay, so he took the magazine out of the gun, and knowing that there was a bullet in the chamber, he held it up to his head, believing that if he pulled the trigger, it would not fire. He was wrong.
Hey, just test it once.
Test it once.
I'm sorry.
Fire up.
One more time. What was his justification? If it's not what, it won't do what?
If there's not a magazine in the gun, even if there's a bullet in the chamber, it won't fire.
Oh, yeah. No, that's not how that works.
What an
I don't
idiot. Yeah.
No.
Guns are not that smart.
I know that.
Yeah.
Well,
after
I mean,
the-
the guy who wrote it lived long enough to write it, so, you know.
They don't
it was a
even
learning
cover.
moment for everybody. It was a learning moment.
Yeah. I learned that brains are gross when they're on the ball.
I learned that libertarians can have emotions.
You know you're watching a fucked up documentary when the voice of reason is the libertarian.
The libertarian that was hired from behind a Walmart gun counter to be campaign manager. Campaign.
Explain this to the mics because I don't think the mics got this far. Can you explain it to him?
Dude, yeah, he was working behind a Walmart gun counter when Joe Exotic walked in, and Joe thought that he was smart, so he hired him to be his campaign manager.
What was Joe running for?
For president in 2016. He was running for president.
Yeah.
Trump.
You gotta start. Officers of the law should understand that you gotta start with sheriff, county commissioner, city hall, fuck mayor. Goddamn, you want to go to state representative, senator before you run for goddamn president.
And what I love though is that everybody considers this dude to be the most level-headed in the documentary. He is, but he was still dumb enough to run a second campaign for that guy.
Yeah.
Whoa. Hold on now.
After that.
A job's a job. Was Joe paying him to manage his campaign? God damn, that's like you're basically getting paid to fucking be entertained.
Yeah, that's true.
How much
what's
was
gonna happen to these people? I'd take that.
Joe was running for the Republican primary?
He was running as a libertarian for president, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
libertarian. Yeah, libertarian.
Okay. Where did he think he was going to get all this money?
Oh.
Was he self-funding or?
Oh, gosh.
I don't know. It seemed like
I don't even think they got into
I
that.
wonder if there was any logic behind it at all.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. There's no logic behind that
He was
haircut.
All right.
It's
Uh,
wild.
So, yeah.
This background was his campaign
Yeah,
poster.
Probably was. Yeah, it was. It was.
I mean, it's kind of a wash compared to what we have now. You know. This would be better.
So Maldonado shot himself in front of the libertarian dude just to keep you guys on the same page. And then local news reporters descended on the park, and Joe held a press conference at the zoo the next day. Standing in front of a backdrop covered in Joe Exotic TV logos, he wore a pink button-down shirt similar to the one he wore on the day he and Maldonado were married. He was inconsolable as he explained that the shooting was accidental, not a suicide.
He's like,
Side note.
This is my wedding shirt. This is my interview shirt. This is my funeral shirt.
That's the shirt he wore to the job interview the day he got arrested. Is Joe's eyeliner tattooed on, or does he apply it? I couldn't tell.
Is it blue?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only color I saw so far. It looked real to me, but you know.
I thought it looked like permanently tattooed on eyeliner, but
It was
so
really
fucking
natural.
lame to get eyeliner tattooed on.
how what?
I said that would be so fucking lame to have eyeliner tattooed.
Ladies used to do that in the 90s, like older ladies did it.
I think it's still a thing. I met somebody actually recently with tattooed eyebrows, but fucking eyeliner.
Oh my god, that would hurt
dude.
so much. Holy shit. I can't imagine an old lady could take it.
I want to get tattooed.
Joe could take it though. Joe could take it all day.
Joe can fucking take it. Matt, you should get that tattooed on you forever.
Joe could take it.
I want to get tattooed eyebrows, but tattooed above my nipples.
Ooh. I think eyelashes are better.
Well, why not? Why not both?
Yeah, sure.
And eyebrows. Pretty big
dude.
blue eyes.
Yeah, I have brown eyes.
I was looking at your nipples. I wasn't thinking.
Oh man.
Your nipples are blue to me. Don't even try to change it. It's already.
They're so small and far apart.
You do have strangely far apart nipples, Cat Cobos.
You know, dude. They're on opposite sides of the globe, dude. dude. Look at those things. I have to trim my armpit hair just so it doesn't cover them, dude.
Oh my god. Okay. Late one night, not long after Maldonado's death, John Finlay got a phone call from Joe. So John Finlay's the meth mouth dude, right? His first boyfriend.
Yeah.
That he was. Yeah. Okay. Finlay, the estranged third member of Joe's three-way union, had come back into Joe's orbit and now managed the Safari Bar. He couldn't understand what Joe was saying, but he could hear that Joe was crying uncontrollably. Finlay drove over to Joe's house. He searched the living room, the kitchen, and 2 bedrooms, but found no sign of Joe. Finlay finally discovered Joe sitting in the converted garage. He was sobbing, and he held a cell phone in one hand and a gun in the other. He had shot at a television screen nearby, just like Elvis.
Yeah. I feel like none of this is out of the ordinary for Joe. That was a daily occurrence anyway.
I know. After that, Joe began to lose his drive to run the zoo. The man he had believed to be his fiscal savior, Jeff Lowe, had turned out to be a far more combative associate than he had expected, and the zoo had fallen into a state of constant crisis. Dude, you know what? I'm going to rant for a second. I'm going to put on my Alex Jones hat. No one's talking about how shitty the animals are treated this whole time. Like, in the documentary on TV.
Oh, yeah.
And in this story, like, no one gives a fuck about the animals.
You know what's funny about that is that's what Carol Baskin and her husband's fucking arguments were. They both went on tirades online after the documentary came out. She posted this long thing on her website, and he posted this long video on YouTube. And you can watch them, and that's what they talk about. They're like, they didn't talk about the animals at all, and it was deception. And like,
well, I think they went in with a very different agenda in mind than it ended up being.
Yeah.
So they probably went in there just to do a character piece on him and then turn into everything else, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not their fault that everybody involved was a fucking lunatic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, in the last episode, they had these 2 big chimps, and they, like, had their hands poking out the cage. And honestly, Matt, I was thinking about the episode that you and I did about chimp attacks with Jackie Cation. And I was like, when is this chimp gonna rip his fucking hand off? Like, I wanted that so bad.
Yeah, that'd be
We
pretty
didn't
cool.
even really get to see too many people, well, not so far anyway, get fucking mauled by tigers. That one chick lost her arm.
Yeah, and that's it.
Like, what the fuck? You know it happened all the goddamn time. They have to have a ton of footage.
Yeah.
Maybe those will be the DVD
on
extras,
the extras.
but like no one buys DVDs anymore, so we'll never see it.
It did show that one part where the lion like started
sniffing his
attacking
shoe.
Joe's foot.
Yeah,
and he fucking pulled him and shit. I thought he was gonna rip his foot off. I was like, God damn, that thing's gonna fucking kill him.
I like the guy that lost his legs fucking skydiving or zip lining.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the zip line.
Oh, dude, we fucking laughed so hard at that part.
You and Ryan did?
Waiting for the fucking, me and Ryan, waiting for the ball to drop. Like, this motherfucker was like, oh, I'm going to dangle my legs over the fucking bridge in the lion pit because it's... him. But
there were a lot of people with injuries not related to animals in this whole
they're
thing.
risk takers, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
and then, like, all of my research, you know, like, for the entire series of the podcast leads me to believe that, like, you can't have an interaction with a wild animal without it going horribly. You know, that's, like, my internal bias. And so it is just really weird that there were not more maulings at this fucking crazy zoo.
Technically, they were all, like, domesticated or, like, you know, bred activities, so none of them were really wild, right?
Yeah. Did you see how fucking fat those tigers were? That bummed me out, too.
You know what's funny is that all the tigers and all the people were inbred.
Well,
I thought that was charming. I didn't think it was funny at all.
Hey, I got a question. Do big cats have like? Do they carry that trichinosis shit?
oh, I don't know.
Or no,
Have you heard of the
not that.
researcher,
Toxoplasmosis. You know that?
Oh,
Is
Yeah,
that the-
because you know how it makes people like crazy and like
Yeah.
like impulsive and shit. Like, what if
Oh,
like that's why all these people are fucking nuts as
That's a
shit,
good question.
like
That's
impulsive.
interesting.
Why
Yeah.
don't you Google that while we're telling the story?
I was looking at it, but I can't find anything on
Well,
it.
how would
Just
how would it be transmitted?
Toxoplasmosis
Tiger
with
to-
big cats. Search that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, that's what I did. I just did. I was looking at it for a little bit here, and I can't find anything on it. So I don't know. I was just saying, like,
That's
maybe
a really
that was
interesting
like,
idea, though. Like,
yeah, it's just like these
and that's,
making
like,
all
people
these
get
because they're
addicted to
always around
cats.
cat pee. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know.
Got it from
'Cause
the pee.
I know.
Mike, how's the cartilage in your
kinda
nose
weird.
doing, dude?
Oh, it's crooked.
Oh, you seem like the kind of guy that's been punched in the face a lot.
My nose used to be straight, but not anymore.
All right.
You know,
So,
Sorry, go on.
oh, it's okay. It was hard for Joe and Jeff are having fights. The crazy fucking benefactor. It was hard for Joe to find peace. He would often walk around the grounds in the early morning, gazing up in the clouds, hoping to see Maldonado's face. Then he'd look around and see rows of cages filled with tigers. Joe came to believe that the zoo no longer represented what he wanted it to be when he first opened it up in his brother's memory. I have all these animals on display suffering, so I can suck donations out of people, he later testified. And then one evening in October of 2017, Joe was expecting a shipment of animals from a circus manager who had been paying Joe to board his cats in the off-season. According to Eric Cowie, a longtime zoo employee, Joe needed to make cage space for the incoming animals. There were some new employees on hand.
So he had to move his ex-husband's giant dick out of the way.
There were some new employees on hand, and Joe told Cowie to lead them away from the tiger cages. Joe then selected 5 aging tigers and killed them one by one, firing a shotgun into their skull. Jeez. That sounds like some concentration camp shit, dude.
Well, at least it was quick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. At least I didn't have to hear him anymore.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
You know that
That
when
was
Carol killed her cats, she wasn't that ethical about it. Bitch.
She just put a pillow over their mouths.
Oh, I bet
It's ethical.
she slowly poisoned them so she could watch the life seep out of their
Yeah.
eyes as they counted down the remaining seconds of their life. That's my Carol. What do you guys think? I know Kate McKinnon already got the role, but fuck, dude, I put on a wig, trim it up and shit,
Did you guys see that?
on some fucking sundress that it looks like I poop on a daily basis.
Did you guys see that Kate McKinnon from Saturday Night Live is going to play her?
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
Kate McKinnon.
Yeah.
I mean,
She's-
I have mixed feelings about that. I think that, like, because she's really fucking funny and good at characters, you know.
Mhm.
And I don't know. Maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised. I don't see her pulling it off. This probably be the greatest feat of her life.
Is it a Tiger King movie? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Live.
there's going to be a biopic about her.
Nice.
Fuck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Have they started filming yet?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just saw a headline while I was doing all of this research. By the way, when I read this article in my head, it went much faster than reading this out loud. This is like a 3-hour podcast
That's it.
now.
It's gonna be like that goddamn documentary. You could fucking show it all in 2 hours, but drag it out.
Tigers.
Okay, so that's crazy though, because it was these people's first day of work, and then Joe just shoots a bunch of tigers in front of him. Okay. If Joe was beginning to let go of the zoo and its animals, he wasn't yet letting go of his war with Carol Baskin. One of the zoo's new employees at the time was a maintenance man named Alan Glover, who had worked for Lowe before. A 6th grade dropout. This is the guy with a tattoo on his eye, right? Can you look that up, Carlos? Alan Glover?
Wait, what's dude?
Grade?
Yeah, it is him.
Yeah, okay.
Sixth grade
Alan,
dropout,
yeah.
dude, that's
He was
confident.
a 6th grade dropout, yeah.
That's confident as
Yeah.
fuck.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's cool. Man. I'm fucking gold. I'm gonna make it.
Yeah, he's like, I don't need this. I'm the first guy in class with pubes.
Oh shit.
According to Glover, one night
Oh, man.
around 11 p.m., he had just gotten off work and was returning to his trailer on the property when he found Joe on the front porch of the gift shop. I just started laughing so much thinking about why we're all fucking doing this topless. It's so stupid.
Well, it's because when you're working from home, you don't see it. We're all wearing pants, but we ain't wearing shirts. It's funny for some reason.
It's so stupid. I'm having an existential crisis. Okay, so, oh fuck. Okay, he found Joe on the porch of the gift shop. Glover had often heard Joe talk about Baskin, and now his new boss was asking him to kill her. Glover figured that his tattoo, sometimes interpreted as a symbol of having killed before, gave Joe the idea. According to Glover, Joe offered $5,000 up front for the job. Glover said yes. Joe strategized about how it should be done, suggesting that Glover use a crossbow or a long-range rifle and target her. Well, she took one of her long walks on the trail outside her house.
No one can trace a crossbow. That's a fact.
You gotta get him ready.
He like shows him his arsenal. He's like, choose one of these weapons. It's like a fucking, it's like the Ninja Turtle weapons. Like,
Like a katana blade, a bow, no nunchucks, a side.
here. Just a slingshot with a rock.
Pick your poison, brother.
You better kill that bitch, Carol.
Fucking government trying to trace your every move. While my guns handed off the fucking serial number, they don't get to know where I got them.
I don't even know what we're talking.
I liked when he's up in the helicopter just talking about throwing grenades down on her
It was over
on her zoo.
48.
Yeah. They were like, yeah, we were getting scared up there, man. He was going to do it.
He's like, don't worry, those aren't grenades in my pocket. This is my balls.
Happy to see you. And happy to see you in this case.
When Garrettson caught wind of the plot, he wasn't sure what to make of it. He called Lowe to get some more information about Glover and again recorded the conversation. He's serious, but I don't think he's capable without fucking it up. Oh my god, my Siri just turned on my phone because I said serious. Okay.
We're always listening.
Yeah,
Third
that's the Chinese government listening on my podcast. I would be happy to have a Chinese government listen to my podcast. Okay. This whole fucking crew is like a clown assassin. That was Garrettson's quote. It was like a clown assassin. The next day, Garrettson
metaphor.
I know. He's as good at metaphors as I am at metaphors. See, that was anti-comedy.
That was
okay.
pretty good.
Yeah. The next day, Garrettson recorded a phone call with Joe. They discussed the Glover plot. As long as we don't get caught red-handed, we got this, Joe told Garrettson. But if they bust him red-handed, me and Jeff got our story down to where we fired him and he just went off the deep end. Okay, so their idea...
If the Glover quits, you must...
just goes and kills the person he's been saying he wants to kill online.
No.
According to Glover, one day in mid-November, Joe handed him an envelope stuffed with cash. Glover went back to his trailer to count it. It was $3,000, not the $5,000 they had agreed on, but Glover didn't care. He didn't trust Joe.
So funny. It's so funny that, like, because it's such a small amount of money to murder somebody over, and to short him and him to be cool with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be more
Yeah.
curious if I was like the victim, you know, like that's all I'm worth. You know, what?
He's like, all right, you can make this money two ways. You can come and work with me for 2.5 years. You'll make $3,000. Or kill this lady and make it now.
All right, I'll trade you this 98 used Ford Taurus.
Opposed to a 98 new Ford Taurus. 1,200 miles on her. One day.
This is a new 98 Ford Taurus.
It runs like new.
It's like when you're told that you're going to get paid like 2 drink tickets and a dinner for performing, and then you just get 2 drink tickets.
Yeah. Because once the show starts, it's the kitchen's already closed.
Yeah.
Like, you had to get here 2 hours ago.
That's microwave popcorn for you.
That's too real, guys. I can't handle it.
That's so fucking real.
I wish I could have that problem right now, though. I'll tell you that.
know. God, I miss getting fucked over.
Yeah.
I'm just getting fucked over.
Do you guys think Mike's taking a shit?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he did this, did he mean that he was smoking weed? Or, I don't know. Okay.
He had
Yeah,
taken
yeah,
a hit
he
in the
was like-
bathroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
He wasn't talking about his asshole.
Yeah.
It's
I'm pretty
dilated.
sure he can hear us right now. Okay. So, the plan...
There he is.
There he is.
Oh, thank God. Oh, it just got 10% more sexy here. Fuck yeah.
What the fuck y'all talking about?
Why is your nose so much, Mike?
I got cold. Something. I don't know.
I got the Roni. Leave me alone.
You got that motherfucking. You got that time? Can't be fucking around with that, you know. All right, I got shit to do. I can't be getting sick.
Do you have to go dumpster dive materials in order to make cat houses?
It's a fucking
That was a
great
callback
idea. I
from
can
Long
sell
Island.
those.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna have their goddamn freedom check. I could be cleaning up.
Okay, so the plan. Oh wait, okay. Wait 1 second. I got totally lost. I mean, imagine that. Okay, the plan, as far as Garrettson knew, had been for Glover to buy a bus ticket, travel to Tampa, and kill Baskin. Garrettson had relayed that information to Bryant. They planned to stake out the zoo and several other bus stations on the day that Glover said he was going to leave. When Glover got on the bus, they would arrest him and Joe. But Glover had a bad back, and he wasn't about to travel across the country by bus. When he departed from the airport in Oklahoma City on November 25th, 2017, bound for South Carolina, Garrettson and the feds were out of the loop.
It's
Without
good,
knowing
it's good that
what?
he had. It's good that he has boundaries for his physical health. My back hurts. I'm not taking a bus. He probably really cut into that $3,000.
Yeah.
Didn't he just blow it all at the titty bar? That's what they made it seem like.
Yeah.
in the documentary.
Yeah.
That's when he
Dude.
realized it's not that much money.
God. I mean, I haven't been to a titty bar since I was in Portland, but they're not that great. I don't know.
We got an online titty bar right here, right now, dude.
I know. We've got her.
Ladies are all drunk.
And we've been working for like 3 hours and no tips.
It's the day shift. It's the day shift. Bullshit.
At the titty bar.
Yeah. Chicken wings, though. $7 prime rib. Down.
That glitter prime rib is amazing, dude.
I shouldn't tell you guys this, but while I was taking a sip, I just spilled some all over my boobs right at the best moment.
That's what we do at this online titty bar.
I know. Without knowing Glover's whereabouts, agents Bright and Faribault decided to call Baskin and warn her. They informed her that there was an imminent threat, but they couldn't tell her much more. Baskin began to take precautions.
So they just called her and told her, "You better watch out. All right, have fun."
Shit's getting real. We don't know what. Oh, I'm so bummed that the Bhagavan, am I saying that right? What was it?
Yeah.
He's not in
Bhagavan.
this at all.
He was great.
He's the best.
Oh, he's not in the article. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was
Huh.
the guy that in the 80s there was in Eastern Oregon and he had that cult?
Yeah.
What
The
was
Moonies?
Yeah.
Or,
No, not the Moonies. The one that
Wild Oregon or Wild Wild West?
Yeah, Wild Country. Yeah. Wild
yeah.
Country
Yeah.
What was that guy's name?
Hold on, I got it.
Because the good doctor's kind of on his level. He's got money, he's got women, and he's a doctor.
And not enough tigers or ponytails, though. Okay, like if I'm gonna join a cult, I need tigers. I need fucking ponytails. All right.
And one Rolls Royce to fucking drive your, the doctor
Your
around.
5 wives, yeah.
It would be fun.
Yeah.
Everybody else.
I'm not
was
gonna
fucking
be-
like-
That
I'm not gonna
Bhagwan.
be. Huh?
What was his name? Bhagwan something.
Rajneeshis was the name of the
Bhagwan.
cult, wasn't it?
Yeah, Rajneesh. Yeah, Rajneesh
Yeah.
movement. Here it is. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. That was his name.
Yeah. All right.
Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh.
Can you imagine like a hack comic? Like the comics that talk about like my fucking wife did this, but one that's like into polygamy, talking about like, my wife.
My fucking wives. Take my wives, please.
Balls and chains.
Take my wives. God, someone needs to write that on Twitter and it'll do well. If I do it. Okay, that's a great tweet. Vagabond says, does stand-up comedy for the first time, says, take my wives, please. Okay.
Work it out.
I know. Oh, I felt like I finally wrote a fucking joke for the first time in 3 weeks. God. That's very Chippendales, Brunken.
Right here, this here's Joe and Joel's. Not trying to think of my fucking feet there, tie it into the show somehow, but that's why I leave it to you guys, the professionals.
I mean, you're a great character actor for someone that's never studied comedy. It's fine. You're doing great. Okay. So, fuck. Just give me a second to catch up here. I keep leaving a marker where I'm at. Okay, there we are. All right. Carol Baskin worried that her mailbox could get rigged with explosives. She steered clear of vans entirely, afraid she might be kidnapped. If she walked out of the grocery store and saw someone had parked next to her, she went back inside and waited until the car left. She began carrying a gun, and she kept it by her bedside every night. No place felt safe. One night, Baskin heard what sounded like someone tearing through the screen on her back porch. There's somebody here to kill me, she thought. It turned out to be neighborhood dogs. Weeks passed without incident.
Wait,
Joe, meanwhile, hadn't heard from Glover.
Neighborhood dogs? Doesn't she live in her own compound? She has neighbors?
No, she has her own house. I remember this scene from watching it last night. And they were laughing about it. They're like, I almost killed my dogs.
Seems like something they'd laugh about.
I know. She didn't give a shit when her first husband went missing. So, you know. Glover later testified that he never even made it to Tampa. He said he had no intention to kill Baskin and only wanted to rip Joe off. After arriving in South Carolina, however, he figured he should probably warn Baskin in person. So he's being paid $3,000 to kill someone, but he's like going up like, by the way.
And she knows, so he's just going, no, wait.
Yeah. I was supposed to save part of that $3,000 to buy a gun to kill you. I spent it all on titties.
Mike Brunken, you look like you should be in a Wes Anderson movie right now.
Yes.
Fucking Peeves Zissou, dude. Hell yeah.
I'm so sorry. Okay, Glover drove down to Florida. He was drunk and high the entire way, as you do when you're driving to fucking Florida, dude. Fuck yeah. He pulled off somewhere, blew a bunch of the money Joe gave him, partying on the beach. He woke up the next morning in an unfamiliar hotel room, and he drove back to South Carolina, and he never contacted Baskin. It became clear to Joe that Glover was not going to carry off the hit, and Garretson finally arranged a meeting between Joe and the undercover agent posing as the hitman.
Hey,
the fake hit.
This guy, sorry, what was his name that was supposed to carry out the hit?
Glover. And then Glover just
The
kind
guy
of...
that worked at Walmart?
No, the guy that worked at Walmart was his campaign manager.
I'm sure he worked at Walmart at some point.
He was like the greeter
Yes.
at Walmart with a tattoo.
You know there's like, there's one in the South somewhere. Probably more than
My favorite moment with Glover was when he called Joe a Goldilocks bitch. That was fucking great.
That's hilarious.
He's all, you Goldilocks bitch. It was great. Oh fuck.
Try not to stick to the fucking head while you're milking her. You can milk a buffalo, right? Let's make that
Yeah,
up.
you can drink buffalo milk. It's a mammal. It has
not?
milk.
I've
You just
never-
have to massage the ball.
No, but seriously, why isn't there buffalo milk at the fucking grocery store? You think that it'd be a thing, especially in Portland?
Well, this is something that you could help with your PBR experiment, Mike.
Holy shit, dude! This is gonna be it's an unfucking tap market. The buffalo milk.
Buffalo
I'm starting
milk.
Buffalo Dairy with a $1,200 freedom check.
I love that everyone's moving towards like almond milk and oat milk, and then you're gonna regressively bring back a new type of mammal's milk to drink
Hey.
when nobody wants it.
Hey, don't call it a comeback. Buffalo milk never went anywhere. Buffalo milk's been here the whole time.
Yeah, I feel like buffalo milk would just taste like steak.
It's called steak milk.
It's something that juggalos would drink, dude.
Just spray on each other's faces.
No, that'd be like a fucking, what's that soda they always drink?
Bagel.
Fago.
So if you had a buffalo steak milk flavored Fago soda,
Flaco.
that's pretty much, I don't think there is anything more ACP than that.
Michael Isaacs, did you say Waco?
I said Flaco, but no, that's fine.
Yeah. I think they should call it Waco.
No, they should call it Waco. Also, that threat that Tiger King makes where he's like, anybody tries to come in here, this will be another Waco. Like,
Yeah.
you don't say
I had
that.
to explain what Waco was to my kid. He's like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? What the fuck's a Waco? I was like, well, there was a time in the early 90s, a really inspirational man named Father David Koresh.
You made me spit take right there for real.
But it was a fun conversation, you know. There's people out there that haven't, you
That
know,
don't
had their
know,
eyes
yeah.
open to the glory of David Koresh.
I mean, Araya wasn't even alive when Waco happened, right?
No, not for like fucking
No
12
way.
I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
time
That
I was
anymore,
long
his
ago.
guys.
age when Waco happened, and I'm 39.
Waco was like in the early
It was
90s, wasn't it?
92 or 93, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Clearly, I'm
it was.
not the
I
one
was
to
still in
ask.
high school. Yeah, it was. I was still
I
in high
remember.
school when that shit went on.
Boy, I remember we didn't have the internet, so you had to come home one day, and it's like, God damn, the whole thing's on fire, and it's on every station. Look at
I
that.
remember Muslims on their rooftops celebrating when Waco
I don't know. It was 2015,
What?
May 17th, 2015.
Waco?
No,
Yeah.
that's not.
What it
Waco?
says here.
Shut up, Carlos.
There's obviously another thing that
Wasn't it?
happened.
No,
Oh,
there's
wait, no,
probably
no.
another
Sorry.
catastrophe that
5
happened
years
in Waco,
since
Texas.
happened.
Never
I think
mind.
the fertilizer thing.
Dude, this was a biker shootout in Waco, Texas. Never mind.
Okay.
Yeah, that
My
sounds about
bad.
right.
My
All
bad.
right.
Did you just
Let's
did,
fucking land this plane.
if you just typed in Waco shooting, I don't think you're gonna get what you're looking for.
Yeah, I know. That's what
You
it
get
pulled up.
multiple
That's
hits.
what it pulled up. My bad.
Yeah, it was 93.
93. Yeah, it was.
Mhm.
Nice.
Did you guys ever read the Weekly World News?
Yeah.
Michael, did you guys ever
Oh.
read it?
No,
No. Do you
It
know
was
what
like
it
the
is?
king of
Though?
Never read it.
no.
Seen it.
At the supermarket when Waco happened, I bought a copy of the issue of Weekly World News, and it had the devil's face in the smoke
Oh.
arising from the compound.
Oh,
wow.
I remember that. I
Yeah.
do remember that. Yeah.
You guys know Bat Boy?
David Koresh looks like Michael and Andie combined.
Oh shit.
You have to post it on Facebook later. Okay, we're going back to this article. We're
All
gonna
right.
fucking finish
What's
this.
happening with this article?
Okay. My stomach hurts. Okay, so Glover is the guy who started partying and everything, and then Garrettson finally arranged a meeting between Joe and a new undercover agent posing as a hitman. The fake hitman, Mark, arrived at the zoo on December 8th, 2017.
His name is
Garrettson-
Mark, and he's a hitman.
Yes.
A fake hitman too. That is the dumbest undercover.
This article
Mark.
has this article has the name Mark in parentheses too.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how he introduces himself. Hey, I'm Mark.
Hey, I'm Mark. Garrison recorded their conversation. Joe explained that he needed time to raise enough money. It was the winter season and attendance was typically low, but he was waiting on a litter of cubs. He offered Mark $10,000 total, $5,000 up front. That bitch has just got to go away, he said. Just follow her to a mall parking lot, cap her, and drive off. Joe didn't have the money to pay Mark yet, and no money had changed hands.
He thinks that he thinks Carol's going to the mall. She doesn't seem like a person that goes to the fucking mall. It's not tigers. Jesus.
Okay, so Joe didn't have the money to pay Mark yet, and no money exchanged hands. Garrison tried to set up another meeting, hoping to capture Joe exchanging money with Mark, but Joe was preoccupied. 3 days after the meeting with Mark, Joe was getting married again, this time to Dylan Passage, a young man from Austin.
Yeah.
Dude, Dylan was like 20 years old and he was 60 at this point.
Yeah.
Dylan, hot dude.
That was so weird.
He was pretty hot. Yeah.
Yeah,
He was the
he
first one that I was mildly attracted to out of all of Joe's conquests.
Well, he seems really gullible, so I
Old
think you have a
big-handed
chance.
Travis?
What's up, Mike Brunken?
So what about old big-handed Travis?
Oh.
Yeah.
That was a tall drink of water right there.
It wasn't my flavor. I don't know what to say, you know? Like,
but he
it's
was
just kind of
silent
Wants what
type.
the heart wants.
Then in April, okay, wait. So over the next 4 months, Garrison recorded several more conversations with Joe, but Joe repeatedly said that he had not yet come up with the money. Then in April, Jeff Lowe returned to the zoo after spending some time in Vegas. They didn't cover this in this article, but in Vegas, Jeff Lowe created a party bus thing that he filled with animals, would drive people to casinos and they could pet animals on their way to and from casinos, right?
Pretty fun.
Well,
yeah.
It wasn't so that they could take people to casinos. It was so that he could fuck chicks.
He and Joe quickly had a falling out. Joe stopped talking to Garrison too. By summer, everything had come to a head for Joe. The legal battering by Baskin, his contentious business partnership with Lowe, the death of Maldonado, and his failing faith in the mission of his own zoo. Then an employee alerted him to a physical altercation between Lowe and his boyfriend Dylan in the parking lot. That was the last straw. One day in June, he packed up everything he could fit into a trailer, left the zoo, and rented a house with Dylan in nearby Yukon, Oklahoma. Everywhere he went in search of a job, people recognized him as Joe Exotic. He couldn't buy gas, and he couldn't even go to Walmart without people hounding him for selfies.
Seems like you blend right into Walmart. That should
But like everyone,
out there.
he was a victim of his own fame, though. Like, can you imagine, like, if George Clooney needed to apply for a job? I'm clearly drunk. I can hear me slurring now.
But fame is all Joe ever wanted, and that he couldn't fucking handle it.
Yeah.
Dude, fuck. You've been smoking meth. Deal with it, man.
Oh,
That
man.
sounds like something
That's
my
messed
dad
up.
would say.
Hi, I'm Dad.
Cobos, that was the most paternal thing you ever said. It was hardly a clean break. He asked Dylan where they would want to live if they could go anywhere in the world. Dylan said he wanted to live on the beach. So in August, they packed up again, and this time left for Florida. Joe Exotic arrived in the courtroom of the federal courthouse in downtown Oklahoma City for his first day of his trial in March 2019, wearing a gray suit with a tie and dress shoes. So they kind of, like, it's not obvious, but, like, remember at the beginning of the story where he's in Florida, he's working jobs, and then he gets arrested?
Mhm.
Now
Yeah.
we're back in Oklahoma. Okay, is everyone with
Yeah.
me? Okay. Joe Exotic arrived in the courtroom at the federal courthouse in downtown Oklahoma City for the first day of his trial in March 2019, wearing a gray suit with a tie and dress shoes. It was odd to see him dressed like that. He typically wore a flashy button-down shirt and a baseball cap or a fringed jacket. He still had his blonde mullet. He stood accused of attempted murder for hire and of violating federal regulations that protected exotic animals. Eric Cowie testified on the first day of the trial. He told the jury about the 5 tigers that Joe had killed. He talked briefly about caring for Cuddles, who he called a clown. That's one of the tigers. He said he watched as a new tiger filled Cuddles' empty cage. Prosecutors showed photos of tiger carcasses that federal agents dug up in the back of the zoo. One Fish and Wildlife Service agent testified that they were stuffed in their graves like hot dogs in the pack. It was a devastating beginning of Joe's trial.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's really fucking sad. So Baskin sat in the back row. She was still afraid for her life. Federal agents escorted her between her hotel and the courthouse. She testified as the prosecutors exhibited dozens of Joe's graphic threats. She was composed on the stand and pointed out that what had been shown in court was just very small sampling of what had been said about her over the years. I believe he blames me for everything that goes wrong in his life. This is kind of like Trump versus Hillary, right?
I bet that like 90% of that document just said that bitch Carol.
Yeah. I mean, they belong together, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This
I mean,
whole
they both
decades of will they, won't they?
So much tension.
Yeah.
Dude, I bet they did bang. I totally bet they banged.
Carol and Joe,
That's
or Trump and Hillary.
Yeah,
Both.
Carol and Joe are Trump and Hillary, right?
Trump definitely banged Hillary.
Yeah. You don't fixate on each other that much
Sex
unless it happens.
That's what we're gonna name this episode. It's not gonna be related to Joe Exotic at all. It's just gonna be like Hillary and Trump definitely boned.
Yeah. How do you think Pizza Rat was born?
Lonnie was giving birth to fucking Barron, and fucking Trump over there beating it up on Hillary.
They were raw dogging, bro.
Raw dogging a fucking politician.
Mm-hmm.
The prosecutors called a string of Joe's former compatriots from the exotic animal industry who testified that they had bought and sold exotic animals in transactions with Joe, often by fudging USDA paperwork. James Garrison testified, and his recorded conversations with Joe were played in court. The jury repeatedly heard Joe say that he wanted Baskin dead. Just roll that fat bitch into the ocean. He said on one of those recordings.
Yeah, I bet he finished that sentence by saying, "That's a whale joke."
When Alan Glover, the would-be hitman who ran off with all the money. By the way, that guy is my favorite character in this whole thing. I decided.
The hitman?
Yeah, he's like, well, he shorted me all money, so I just blew it all at the titty bar. I woke up in a hotel I don't recognize. That is the hero in this story, by God.
And then went over and told her, like, "Hey, man, don't put it on me. Somebody's trying to kill you. They tried to hire me."
Brunken fell asleep. I mean, it's hard when you've been up for 3 days on meth to keep it together for this podcast, right?
Don't anymore. Everywhere and I am nowhere. I am the alpha and the omega. I have seen things that have yet to be heard.
He's losing it.
Imagine that's how I would be on. I mean, stand up for 3 days on anything will fuck with your head, but on meth, ooh-wee.
I heard there's a new super meth too now, so that's something we could all be doing in the meantime.
What is that, Joe Exotic's dick?
Oh, they just like, yeah, it's his jizz, and they let it dry and then chop it up. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what.
Yo, Exotic's kids, up your nose.
Okay. So when Alan Glover, the would-be hitman, ran off with the money, took the stand, he was gruff and rude and easily confused. He explained that he wanted all along to take Joe's money and run. He said he let Joe believe his teardrop tattoo meant that he had killed before, when really it was meant to memorialize his late grandmother.
Oh.
Aw, isn't that sweet? To get that money from Joe, I'd let him believe anything he wanted, Glover said. Joe took the stand on the trial's sixth day. He gave a rambling testimony claiming he'd been set up by Jeff Lowe, who wanted to kick him out of the zoo behind his back. He accused Lowe, Garrettson, and Glover of conspiring against him and of running various criminal schemes from the zoo. He said Lowe told him to give Glover $3,000 so that Glover could travel to South Carolina, and that he did it because he thought it would get Glover out of his hair. Joe admitted to shooting the 5 tigers. He said it was because they were old and in poor health. Euthanasia by gunshot, he noted, is legal. In 20 years, I've had 50 plus tigers buried in that back pasture, and nobody gives a damn. Nobody. So he's just implicating himself more. He's like,
Yeah.
He's like, well,
Yeah,
you think
totally.
this is bad? Guess what else I did?
Yeah.
Yeah, that ain't shit.
When confronted with his own recorded statements, the many threats against Baskin, his discussions about the Glover murder plot, and his discussions with the undercover hitman, he said he knew that Lowe and Garrettson had been up to something and that he was playing along only to gather evidence. He accused Lowe of everything from drug use to sex trafficking. Lowe's name was mentioned repeatedly during the trial, but he was never called to testify.
Was he called that?
Lowe declined.
Bitch Lowe?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Now you think this other bitch is bad? Let me tell you about this bitch Lowell over here. This son's a bitch. Proceed.
Lowe declined to comment for this story, claiming he had sold his exclusive rights to Netflix, which isn't true. In her closing statements, the lead prosecutor, Amanda Green, by the way, Amanda was really fucking hot, I thought. She was like a Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs kind of hot lesbian.
When did she this series?
She's like in episode 6 or 7, and she's fucking hot, dude.
Yeah.
Is she the news reporter?
No, she's the federal prosecutor lady. Like, they zoom in on her with like the American flag in the background.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Oh, we lost Carlos. That's okay. Okay. In her closing arguments, lead prosecutor Amanda Green urged the jury not to believe Joe's story. The Tiger King, that's how Joe has marketed himself and lived his life. But here's the thing with kings. They start to believe they're above the law.
Yeah, we have a president. We know.
Yeah. The jury wasn't swayed by Joe, and on April 2nd, he was convicted on all counts. He may go to prison for 20 years. He accepted the verdict silently, staring straight ahead into the distance. Baskin, his boyfriend, Carol Baskin, I'm sorry. Baskin wasn't in the courtroom to see it. She left after 3 days of the trial. Back at her sanctuary in Tampa, she was relieved when the verdict came in. We spoke a week after the trial in the living room of a small ranch house at Big Cat Rescue, surrounded by wall art depicting exotic cats. Why did I say cats like that? I just went cats.
Yeah.
I am.
I thought you said chaos.
I totally did.
chaos.
She hoped that if Joe were handed a strict sentence, it might detour others in the exotic animal industry from operating zoos like his. Yet it troubled her that Joe, even from jail, had remained involved in the exotic animal business. In a recording that was playing during the trial, he appeared to be brokering the sale of some lion cubs. I said lion cubs!
In the trial,
Exhibit B. This here is line.
he's just leaning back into the crowd, just like trying to make a deal on some lion cubs, or they brought it up at the trial.
Oh, no, in the background, like it appeared that he was still like trying to sell cubs through his boyfriend Dylan.
While he's on trial, he's just like, "Hey man, before I go to jail, I'm trying to get rid of these."
Yeah.
But I need top dollar.
I gotta take a bathroom break, and I gotta see how much longer this shit is. Oh, there's only one more page, guys. Thank
you're
God.
almost done.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank God. I can wait. All right. I am so sorry this took so long. You guys are so funny.
We almost did the whole series.
I know. It's been like an 8-hour podcast.
You ain't gotta watch it. You just
Yeah.
listen up.
At least we get out of quarantine tomorrow.
That was a thinker. I liked it. Well done, Cobos. Okay. Okay. I spoke to Joe's ex, John Finlay, in late March. He was living in a Motel 6 off of I-35 in Oklahoma. He found work as a welder, and he laid underneath the covers of his bed as he spoke to me. He had the name of his favorite tiger from the zoo, Ludo, tattooed on his stomach. He told me that Joe ruined his life, but he was hopeful about having the chance to start over. This is going to be the beginning of my life without it in him, he said. J.C. Hartpence, Joe's second partner, was not so fortunate. He spoke to me after the trial by phone from the Larned Correctional Mental Health Facility in Kansas. After he left the zoo, his life continued in a downward spiral. He was convicted in 2006 of molesting a child younger than 14 and then murdered a man in Kansas.
God.
Yeah.
Wait,
We can't make jokes about that. He could spend the rest of his life in prison.
So I just missed the character. Who was that?
It was his first husband.
They were starting a new story.
Yeah. I like that. I like that they just draw the line at 14. Like that's just a whole nother category. They're like, he was younger than 14. Like that makes any fucking difference.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I cannot comment on any of it. It's too fucking dicey for me, dude.
Welcome to comedy, Andy.
Remember at the beginning when I was like, I can't say the word bitch out loud, and look where we are now.
Fucking 13 hours later.
A week after the trial, I began talking to Joe on the phone from Grady County Jail, where he was awaiting sentencing. At first, he was reserved. He hardly resembled the bombastic man I had watched on the witness stand and in his many videos. He told me of his childhood, about his loveless family. He told me he was sexually abused when he was 5. He spoke fondly of the days of the zoo and seemed proud of the animals he had rescued. I asked him if he regretted posting any of the things he had about Baskin. He said no, explaining that he had to act tough online in the face of hostile animal rights activists. He reiterated his claim that he was framed, and he questioned the motives of the prosecutors. Am I in jail until they can shut down this industry, or am I taking the rap for all these people? His voice rose, and his tone grew darker. Come hell or high water, at some point I'm going to make the world news, okay? Something's going to change in the name of Joe Exotic. I asked him what he meant. This is a recorded telephone, so I'm not going to tell you that. Oh, finally he's savvy, right? But at some point, bet your ass, I'm going to make world news. I visited the zoo. Wait, what?
Well, he wasn't wrong.
Yeah, true. He's like so famous now. He's probably stoked. Do you guys think he's stoked?
Oh, I bet he loves it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
He
totally.
does seem like the type that enjoys attention.
He's going around jail telling everybody how famous he is to fuck all the hot young dudes till they die.
He's like,
I bet he already has like 3 husbands in jail.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah.
Kingpin. No doubt he's a kingpin.
Yeah. He has 3 husbands from juvenile delinquent hall.
Yeah, dude.
Okay, I could make a molestation joke. All right.
Now he knows what it's like to be one of his goddamn lions, though, sitting there in a cage.
That's how it starts and ends. The documentary is, I'm one of my lions now. He literally says that, Mike.
I haven't seen it, I swear. We just have a connection, Joe and I. Wow. Gotta get me some shitty tattoos and knock out every other tooth. Dude.
You should get some bullet wound tattoos. Did you see those ones on Joe?
Yeah.
Oh, you got shot. Sorry, I haven't got caught up yet. When we started the podcast, I haven't got caught up with it. But the thing is,
this is the longest podcast ever. We started this 3 hours ago.
oh,
Okay.
really cutting to my Sunday time.
I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Right now.
You should be at church.
Goddamn fucking quarantine.
I visited the zoo the day after. What?
Nothing. Thought it would land. I'm a fucking comedian, man. I don't have timing. I just have these giant fucking hands.
Carlos thinks you're pretty cool, though. I mean, look at him. Who cares? No. Okay. We're so close to done. I visited the zoo the day after Joe was convicted. It was 11:30 in the morning on Wednesday, and I was the only visitor there. Signs warned every few feet of surveillance cameras and armed guards. Many of the cages were empty, and the ones that weren't held cats that paced aimlessly inside their small enclosures. There were piles of dried feces in some of the cages. It took me about 20 minutes to walk slowly through the zoo. Tacked on to many of the enclosures were faded placards from donors, often memorializing the dead. This compound is in loving memory of Grace Maples. We loved you best. Read one. The Tiger Complex was built in loving memory of Jared. Willis Hurley, read another. May your spirit be free. It was a terrible reminder of what the zoo could have been and of what Joe supposedly wanted it to be. A living memorial. A sanctuary from the tragedies in life, both animal and human. One person not memorialized anywhere in the zoo was the Tiger King. Joe's face had been scrubbed from the property. Even the billboards on I-35 had been taken down. Somewhere in the back pasture, there were more than 50 dead tigers. There was no memorial for them either. Okay, we did it!
What a happy note to end that on.
We did it!
Yeah. Hell yeah.
America!
Woo!
Yeah.
That was the Dr. Zhivago podcast.
We are champion.
Michael get his background.
I know. Kellen was just like, how the fuck did Michael get his background like that?
Studio magic. That's what my room looks like. Yeah, that's my house.
Wallpaper.
Yeah.
Michael, if you move back from your camera and turn around and bob your head, it'll look like you're sucking his dick.
Yeah, walk a little bit.
You're up a little bit.
Huh?
Basically licking his feet right now. A little higher. A little higher. There you go.
I've been thinking about that for so long.
You're just watching a man living out his dreams right there, you know?
Yeah, dude.
You guys, that was so much fun and so exhausting.
That was great. Yeah, totally.
Thank you. I'm so sorry it took so long. I had no idea.
It's all right. We did it. The
We
Tiger
did it.
Queef. We're the Tiger Queefs.
We're the Tiger Queefs. Fuck yeah. USA. USA.